Planning Board meeting for tonight, December 8th, 2022, and I would like to ask you to rise and salute the flag.
States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, who's doing roll call?
Chairman Marucci, we do not have a board secretary tonight, so I'm going to try my best
Okay.
to manage the meeting.
Okay, thank you, Vina.
To start with the roll call. Chairman Marucci,
Here.
Ms. Cannon. Here. Mr. Lenning,
Here.
Mayor Henry,
Here.
Mr. De Palma,
Here.
Mr. Lauer,
Here.
Mr. Renner,
Here.
Mr. Perry is absent. No,
No, I'm here.
sorry. Mr. Perry,
Uh-oh.
Mr. McIsaac,
Here.
Mr. Brennan,
Here.
Mr. Sardello,
Here.
Ms. Shapiro, here. Mr. Darji, Mr. Praska, Mr. Kalyokalani, Ms. Savant present. I think we can.
Okay, and first I'd like to announce to the public and to the board as well that we are being televised for the duration of the meeting this evening, as we do for every meeting. Okay, and first on the agenda this evening is a discussion of our 2023 Planning Board meeting schedule, and I'll hand that to Vina. The meeting schedule?
So we need to adopt it. It was circulated. I just want to hear from the board if there are any questions, concerns. If not, we can move it for adoption.
Okay, has everybody on the board had a chance to review the meeting schedule, and does anybody have any issues? All right, so we're going to put it to a vote, and I'd like to ask for a motion.
I'll move it.
Mr. De Palma, and a second.
I'll second it.
Okay, Vina.
Chairman Marucci,
Yes.
Ms. Cannon,
Yes.
Mr. Lenning,
Yes.
Mayor Henry,
Yes.
Mr. De Palma,
Yes.
Mr. Lauer,
Yes.
Mr. Renner, absent. Mr. Perry,
Yes.
Mr. McIsaac,
Yes.
Mr. Brennan.
Yes.
Okay, all set. Okay, and the first application we have on the agenda for this evening, sorry, I got to flip it over, is Morris Habitat for Humanity, which is application number 48-2022P, major preliminary and final subdivision and major preliminary and final site plan, and they propose to redevelop the vacant lot into 12 lots for 12 affordable fee-simple homes.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just a note to anyone in the public who may be here on it, the other application, MBM at Old Bridge, SPE, Phase 1 LLC, for the amended GDP plan, has been requested to be adjourned. That's being carried to the January 26, 2023 meeting. So anyone here who is on that application, please be advised that that's being carried to the January meeting of the Planning Board.
Mr. Sardello, that would be without further notice.
That is correct.
Good evening, gentlemen. It's got to go green on the bottom.
Yeah, there we go. Good evening, everyone. Steve Goen from Giordano, Halloran, and Ciesla, representing the applicant, Morris Habitat for Humanity, Inc. As the chairman indicated, this is an application for preliminary and final major subdivision and site plan approval. The property is Block 39, lots 128 and 140 in Old Bridge Township. This is a property that is in a designated redevelopment area. It's within the 200 Lawrence Parkway redevelopment area. Habitat has been conditionally designated by the township's redevelopment agency as the redeveloper of this property. Property is owned by the township of Old Bridge, and this project is proposed to be 12 single-family affordable units with a preference for veterans housing through Habitat's affordable housing program. This project is in the township's 2016 Housing Element and Fair Share Plan. If approved tonight, we get through the site plan approval process with a resolution adopted. We would enter into a redevelopment agreement with the township and the redevelopment agency to carry out the plan. And Habitat's expectation is to start construction, this spring if we get through the approval process. So tonight I have with me Thomas Fick, who's our professional engineer, walk you through the site plan. I have Seth Lieb, our architect, and I have Eric Keller, who is our professional planner. And we're going to go through the plans and also a review letter that we got from Ms. Sawant and Ms. Shapiro. So we'll try to do it expeditiously, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Fick to introduce himself.
Let's just start with swearing you in. Thank you. Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're going to give this evening is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
So Mr. Fick, first thing, just give the board your professional qualifications.
Sure. Last name spelled F-I-K. I am a professional engineer licensed in the state of New Jersey. I was licensed in 2005. I have a Bachelor's of Science degree in civil engineering from the University of Rhode Island. I've testified in front of many boards in the state of New Jersey. I have not had the liberty to present in front of Old Bridge, but I am the person solely responsible for the preparation of the site plans in front of you this evening.
Thank you, sir.
I assume the board accepts those credentials.
Absolutely.
Okay. So Mr. Fick, do you want to put up, Vina, if we could, the site plan? Which one?
The one that's up there now is sufficient.
So let's start with this. So just for the record, if you could describe it and then walk the board through what we're looking at.
Sure. What we have on the screen here is an area map. It's considered the existing conditions plan. It is a plan that shows the immediate properties in the area overlaid on an aerial. The subject property is known as lots 128 and 140 within block 39. Frontage is along Lawrence Parkway. That would be to the bottom part of the screen there, which is the east. Lawrence Parkway is also noted as County Route 689. The other two local roads are Woodland Avenue and Norwood Avenue. The subject property measures approximately 33,000 square feet or 0.75 acres. It's currently vacant. Primarily, it is grass covered. The site was the former Township Senior Center, which was demolished in 2019. On July 13, 2015, the Old Bridge Township Council, by resolution number 283, designated the area comprising of Block 39 and lots 128 and 140 as an area in need of redevelopment. The redevelopment plan entitled 200 Lawrence Harbor Parkway, former Senior Center, was prepared and last amended September 14th, 2021. The redevelopment plan creates the Affordable Housing -2 AH2 zone with bulk and design standards for development for this site. The neighboring parcels will remain in the R5 zone, which is the medium-high density residential zone. And the neighborhood consists of single-family dwellings with lot sizes ranging from 1,800 to 3,000 square feet. I'd like to move on to the next exhibit.
Before you do that, just to clarify, is this something that was previously submitted, or is this an exhibit we're marking?
This is an exhibit we're marking.
Okay, so we'll mark that as Exhibit A1.
It's called Area Map, Existing Conditions. So that is the cover sheet of the site plans. If we can move to the second plan, which was the second sheet to the one that was up previously. I think it's the other tab. If you go to the other tab, Fina, if you don't mind, that's the other, there you go. The next sheet in this. Perfect, great. So this we'll consider this Exhibit A2. This is called Area Map Proposed Conditions. And what this plan is the creation of the 12 lots as part of the subdivision for this project. So the applicant is seeking to subdivide the property into 12 fee simple lots in accordance with the redevelopment plan. 6 duplex-style residential structures are proposed with associated site improvements in accordance with the plan. A total of 12 for-sale affordable homes are proposed, and the homes are restricted to low to moderate income with a preference for veterans.
So they are 6 duplexes?
Yes, 6 duplexes, but it's considered 12 units, 12 homes, correct. If we can go to the next sheet. And this is a blow-up of the subdivision with the site improvements highlighted or colored up. We'll consider this one A3, and we'll call this one site plan.
Site plan rendering.
Yes. So as I mentioned, these homes are will be considered single-family, semi-detached with common walls. The mix of the dwellings on site contains 2 one-bedroom, 4 two-bedroom, 4 three-bedroom, and 2 four-bedroom for a total of 12 units. So each structure conforms to the setback requirements set forth in the redevelopment plan. Most dwellings will have a patio or a deck with accessible walkways. I'd like to note that each home has at least one accessible route to the main first floor. Each dwelling will have separate water and sewer connections, as well as being fire sprinklered, and also have individual gas, electric, and cable services. Each lot provides a driveway for on-site parking for 2 cars. The redevelopment plan requires a minimum length of 36 feet. However, the lot 140.11, which is the one all the way up at the top right of the exhibit, that parking is proposed to be in front of the unit, side by side, instead of a single lane, 36-foot long driveway. And the reason for that was that there were some grading challenges in that area. The topography was challenging, the proximity to the lot line. Therefore, we'll be requesting a waiver, a design waiver for that particular driveway. Just please note that there will be some other deviations from the redevelopment plan due to the size and shape of the property and our ability to provide accessibility to each unit. Our planner will get into detail of those deviations in his testimony later. In terms of circulation and pedestrian improvements, as required by the redevelopment plan, the Lawrence Parkway will be widened, as well as Wood Lane Road, and both will allow parking on those streets. Norwood will not be widened, but all 3 roads will receive new curbing and sidewalks. There will be an ADA ramp at the corner of Woodland and Lawrence Parkway with a crosswalk that goes across Woodland. The proposed development results in less than 1 acre of land disturbance and less than a 1/4 acre of new regulated vehicle surfaces. Therefore, stormwater management is not required. The proposed grading will essentially be in general conformance with the existing topography. Between each lot, there will be some swales that will carry the runoff. There are 2 walls that we are proposing on site to help mitigate some challenging areas with the topography. In terms of landscaping, there are 7 trees that are going to be removed. We will be providing replacement trees for a count of 21 trees as per the township ordinance calculations. And each lot is meant to be covered with lawn, and the canopy trees will be scattered about the site, generally as shown on the exhibit above. In terms of outside agency approvals, we have submitted to Freehold Soil Conservation District. We received some comments, and we'll be resubmitting along with any revisions necessary to the site plans. Middlesex County, our submission to the county will be forthcoming, and any applications necessary to the MUA regarding water and sewer services, those will be forthcoming as well. That's basically my overview of the project, existing conditions. And at this point, we can go through the engineering comments in the December 5th memo.
Tom, just so we can be efficient here, I think we'd like to do with respect to the December 5th memo, why don't we just indicate if there's any comment that we potentially have a problem with or anything in general, we're going to comply with all the comments, correct?
That is correct. We've went through each of these comments, and we intend to comply with most of them. I'd like to bring up maybe a few of those on page 10 on 4D. We'd like the opportunity to work with the township engineer on these drainage easements that are requested. In addition, on 4H and 4F, 4F and 4H, the request to add additional drainage piping, the applicant will comply with those. We'd like the opportunity to work with the engineer just to ensure that the easements fall in the right place and ensure that we have the right language in terms of any easement documentation necessary for each property owner, and just ensure that the engineering works, and also in terms of the resurfacing comment on 5A on page 11, we'd like to also have a further discussion with the township engineer on paving and the resurfacing of the roads. We understand that the Lawrence Parkway is a county road. We're obviously wait until we receive comments back from the county on that. But in terms of the resurfacing of those two roads, we'd like to have another discussion with the township engineer as a condition of approval, just to understand fully what the paving schedule would be for those two roads. We understand there's going to be some time before resurfacing that road will occur anyway, but it'll take some time. But in the meantime, we'd just like to have a discussion as to what Habitat will be responsible for. Okay. Other than that, the rest of the comments we will comply to.
Okay, Nicole, any input?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I mean, Mr. Fick and I had a conversation this afternoon. We had reviewed the memo in detail, and then we had gone over several of the points. As for the resurfacing, Woodland is actually forecasted for 2023 resurfacing. We're obviously going to hold off on that. And then Norwood, from the last time I was out there, would need some resurfacing, but is on our schedule for 2029. We're actually currently looking at every road in town that hasn't been resurfaced, along with our DPW director, Casey Lenning, and in January, we're coming to council with a presentation. So that'll shuffle out a little bit differently than probably our 2017 ranking list. So we'll see how it falls then, and then we're going to coordinate with the engineer on what the resurfacing efforts are. The engineer did mention that there were some drainage comments. I think it was in section 4F, where he's not aware, but I brought him up to speed this afternoon that we're going to be placing a inlet downstream of the homes on Woodland to capture runoff from the new home that was actually constructed by Habitat on Norwood. So he'll be able to tie into that, and we're certainly going to be way ahead of him. So once we have the design information for that, we'll provide that to him for his connection, and anything the town can do to help with that connection. We know that, and we are sensitive to the fact that Habitat is constrained on funding to make it a viable project. With that, I think that was it. It is a county road, Lawrence Parkway. We had several meetings, so even if an application isn't in front of the county yet, and it will be, they aren't blind to it. Any improvements along Lawrence Parkway was with their consent from their engineering department. So Restoration efforts will have to be discussed with them for Lawrence Parkway, but I think we can come to an agreement.
Okay, and are the improvements in any way attached to the certificate of occupancies? The COs, they won't hold them up in any way?
No, the improvements have to be in place for them to be issued a CO.
Okay. Okay. Very good. Nina, any input?
I just wanted to emphasize on the fact that I don't know if the board is aware, this is a 100% municipally sponsored project. It's part of the housing element and fair share plan. Although you see a few deviations and waivers on in my report, they're primarily because the redevelopment plan was written before the site plan was engineered. So we had a preliminary concept, and we drafted a redevelopment plan based on that. When we started really looking at the engineering and involved the county in it, there were certain tweaks, and you will see that there are deviations, but they are not significant. They're very minor in nature. This might require a redevelopment plan amendment should the county not accept an easement and require a right-of-way dedication. Because what happens is with the right-of-way dedication, the lot area will shrink, and so it will trigger a floor area ratio. However, we are aware that if the county does not accept the easement and would require a right-of-way, I would amend the plan to make sure that the floor area matches, because the site is too small, and we're just trying to fit everything in and work out.
Okay, any questions or comments from the board members?
Thank you. I just had a question about the clearly defining of the yards with, to avoid the neighbor putting something on someone else's property for security, if someone should have a small child, a dog, if fences were going to be installed, to clearly define what is your property and what is not your property. And I know it's compounded because of the swale, the drainage swale that's in some of the backyards. So my question is, how are we going to avoid those potential conflicts moving forward, with someone wanting to put a fence up to define their yard?
Right. The fences will be permitted. It's my understanding that the fences will be permitted in the drainage easements between the yards, as long as they have a clearance of 4 inches, I believe, to allow the water to drain
That'll be the
through.
homeowner's responsibility to put the
homeowners-
fences up.
Correct, right. And we will be setting property corners on all the lots so that each owner understands where the property limits are. Obviously, if there's a fence that needs to be constructed, they will have to have, property corners marked up and ensure that there's no encroachment.
And the corners would be on the zero lot lines as well?
Yeah, yes. That is correct.
And I see on the drawings, it looks like a couple of decks butt each other, it looks like on 2 of the homes, the zero lot lines.
There's actually only 2 decks proposed. All the others are patios. We do have a separation fence between those 2 patios provided.
Okay,
Correct.
very good.
If they abut each other, there is a fence that's proposed.
My second question, thank you for your response, for the retaining walls that are going to be built, who will be responsible for the maintenance and upkeep of those walls? Is it going to be the property owner?
It'll be the property owner that, where the wall lies, it'll be their responsibility.
And they will know that.
Yeah, that'll be the documents that we provide time of closing.
I can't see, was there any common ground here where there would be no ownership, that there would be
No common space.
no common ground whatsoever? Okay. And just a comment on that one driveway. If no, would maybe a sidewalk from that driveway to the house as opposed to somebody going out and then around? Looks like the shortest distance between 2 points would be a sidewalk from the driveway to the house.
I'm sorry, where?
That up the corner.
Okay, yeah, so the reason we did that, that's the accessible route to get there. But there's a very challenging section in that area. We can't meet the slope requirements to provide an accessible route from the sidewalk to get into the front. Therefore, in the event there's the need for an accessible route, we provided that walkway to the back to the patio to get inside of the first floor.
Okay.
It was really the only option we had, given the site, the size of the lot.
And the driveway next to it to the left, of looking at it from me, the left of that driveway to the left?
Left side, the same way. It's at the end of the park, end of the driveway. We needed to create length to get to the patio to get inside the back. Very challenging in that particular part of the project that's facing Norwood, given the grades that are there.
Are these units all handicapped accessible?
Yes, there's at least one route to each first floor, and they are all, I believe our architect will discuss further a little bit, but they are accessible,
ADA
term. Yeah, adaptable, sorry, yes, a lot of E's. Yeah, ADA, they're adaptable, yes.
Thank you very much. Great job. Thank you.
And the driveway, just to piggyback on what Mayor said, the driveway on that upper right lot, that's a common driveway, correct?
Correct.
Is there anything down the center? I know
Well,
some
it's
I've
not a
seen-
comment, those two spaces are directly for that particular unit.
It is, well, for that driveway, the two units on that lot share that driveway?
No,
they
there's
don't.
one on the left, there's the gray area there to the left of it, of that
Okay,
unit,
okay.
there's that driveway for that unit, and then on
Gotcha.
the right, it's only for that, two parallel side-by-side spaces for that unit.
Okay, very good. Okay, any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. I'm curious, will the parking areas accommodate two cars?
Each driveway is 36 feet long, so therefore, two cars will be fit inside that
thank you.
driveway.
And the width?
10.
10, okay, great. Okay, anybody else? Does that conclude questions from the board members? Mr. Lavallo? Certainly.
I don't believe we have, no.
No, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Lavallo had provided us with a memo. We didn't share that because internally, we were going to take on that responsibility. If Mr. Lavallo wants to share his findings from that memo, he does see heritage trees on the site. You all might be aware that, I believe it was either 2017 or 2018, we did take down the building that was on there. And we cleared site and then stabilized the vegetated area there, but there are some large trees, and I can't remember the number off the top of my head, and Gary, you can, 6 trees on site. He did identify them as heritage trees. I think Mr. Fick's response tonight was that there was 21 tree plantings on site, and certainly Gary can further into his memo, and he was concerned about the heritage trees on site, obviously, with the limited amount of property and the idea that we have to meet our affordable housing obligation and the 12 units on site, that we cannot save those trees. However, we will be replanting in place, and should there be some other implication to that, we would then take care of plantings elsewhere in town and not on this site particularly because it is constrained. So we did not share that with the applicant as the township, and because it's 100% municipally sponsored, we're going to take that burden on ourselves.
Oh, great, okay.
Sir, I'm sorry, can you please just speak into the microphone just so we can get on record? Thank you.
All right, Gary Lavallo, Conservation Officer. Is that on? I just wanted to make sure that they realize what the heritage trees are there. I just wanted to comment. I know that they're affordable housing, especially for veterans, badly needed. There's nothing that I would attempt to do to stop this project from going forward. It is a need. It is something that has to be done. But I just could not sit back and watch 6 heritage trees be removed without a single comment. So that's the purpose of the memo, because I know that when these century-old trees get cut down, there's going to be probably some community backlash that comes out. I just want to be prepared for that. So that's the purpose of the memo. I did cite no less than 8 referrals to heritage trees, specimen trees in the ordinance, which I put in the memo. That's really the intent of the memo, is just to put it on record and get a comment about that. And Nicole answered that comment. If there's no engineering that could be done to save the trees, then we just move forward. Okay?
Okay. Thank you, Gary.
And I believe the applicant will be happy to receive assistance on the specimen trees that would be more suitable for the
I
site.
think on behalf of the applicant, I'm happy with Ms. Shapiro's response, so we'll go with that.
Okay. All right, somebody escort him out. Okay, does that conclude?
That's all I have for Mr.
his
Fick,
testimony?
yes.
Okay. So now we would like to open it up to the public for any questions of this witness. Yes, sir.
I didn't know this was going to be presented, but I bought my hat. I just wanted to ask a question. First of all, I want to comment.
Your name, please?
Commend all of you. Can you hear me?
Yes, your
Oh,
name?
my name is George Millett.
Spelling?
258 Shoreland Circle, Lawrence Harbor.
Okay, and how do you spell your last name, sir?
Excuse me? Millett.
Okay.
I want to commend all of you because this is an arduous task, I know from experience in the past. I also wanted to make note of the fact that Larry Redmond Jr., who had been a member of the planning board for a long time, has died a couple of days ago.
Yes.
And we're all going to miss him. Regarding this presentation, I had been involved in the original plan on this, and I wanted to ask a question. That you're going to have staircases that go from the first floor to the second floor, and the Veterans Administration provides for veterans who have mobility problems these chair lifts which go up and down the staircase. But the width of the staircase is very important as to whether or not this can be used well. For example, in my house, my staircase is 36 inches wide, which is a little bit wider than normal. Yep. And I determined that putting a chair lift in my place would just block too much of the access to the staircase for those who don't need it. So I just wanted to mention that as part of the consideration when this
Okay.
is.
And
this
what
is
we'll
built.
do is when the architect comes up, we'll have him address your question
Right,
and
okay.
and answer any questions or concerns you may have regarding that. Is that acceptable? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great. Thanks for your time, sir. Did you turn your phone off?
Yeah, well, I'm trying. I turned the volume down. I don't know. It's the damn ambulance thing going on.
I got to take a shot when I can.
Yeah, I know that. Dave Merwin, 492 Brookside Avenue, Lawrence Harbor. First, I want to commend the administration for this project. And I want to commend them for the fee simple housing units. I wish all our COA units were fee simple, not having apartments all over town. And I'm glad I heard the word veteran, but I keep hearing veteran preference. So there's no guarantee that there's going to be 12 veterans in here. That's the problem that I really have. But 12 is a lot of units on this property, and I understand the need for it. But I have a very serious concern about the houses that sit along Lawrence Parkway. They're going to be backing out on the Lawrence Parkway. It's a 35 or a 40-mile-an-hour zone there. It's a hill. All right? I don't know who did their traffic engineering, but believe me, it's it's definitely dangerous. So, I guess they're going to have a traffic guy come up tonight or what?
Yeah, I was going to ask that as well. I didn't hear that at the beginning of your testimony that you brought a traffic expert.
We did not, but our engineer can address that question.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay. Very good.
This is between St. Lawrence Church and the railroad bridge. Lawrence Harbor is noted for not having too much parking. there's not a lot of off-street parking, there's not a lot of driveways. You know, they're talking about curbs and sidewalks, and there are things that we don't know about down there, you know. But there's definitely, so you have 1, 2, 3, 4 units that'll be coming out onto Lawrence Parkway, and that's a concern, and, you know, I'd hate like hell, you know, I don't want it on my head, so I'm making sure I'm gonna tell you. Knowing that area very well, that's dangerous. And so I hope that you just keep that into consideration there. But again, everything else is great. You know, that's bad. So, all right, thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Mr. Chairman, may I address that? Because when Vina and I were reviewing or coming up with a redevelopment plan, we caucused with Middlesex County on how we could approach that. There were some iterations when we were talking with a different developer on if we could sort of put a key into the driveway so we could have them turn around or partially turn around on site and then back out. Obviously, with the constraints on the property, it's not really conducive. But what we did do is we had them push the right-of-way back on Lawrence Parkway to give us an opportunity to take the shoulder for the 4 homes that are just east of this location, right before you get to the church, and provide, if they turn that wheel, especially if they're heading westbound, they can cut the wheel in a way where they're using that shoulder to then come up out of their driveway and safely traverse. Just like the 4 homes do it just east of this location, we were trying to, one, create a little bit of a wider pavement area so that they could come out and sort of be away from the travel lane itself. And then 2, to create, you know, some additional areas if somebody was to, you know, want to park in front of the house instead of in the driveway like a visitor. But again, street parking is not required because there's 2 parking spaces in there. There wasn't a traffic engineer on this project because the volumes are just not there. And that's why we limited it to the 4 homes backing out onto Lawrence Parkway. There were several different iterations when we were going through the redevelopment plan, but this iteration limited the amount of movement on Lawrence Parkway, gave us the ability to do that widening, and then to extend that shoulder line that the 4 homes just east of this location takes advantage of.
And you mentioned you're going to key the driveway depressions to...
We weren't on this iteration. Okay. We weren't, but in that iteration, there was no widening. So now that we have the widening, it's almost like the shoulder acts as that key, okay. You know? So, you know, we think with the same, it's the same method that's used for the 4 homes just east of this location, and just the same as they do it safely, we would hope that these residents do the same.
Will there be any signage or anything on Lawrence Parkway?
That's up to the county. I can't. When we did talk to the county, they sort of led us in a way. I don't want to speak for them tonight. I don't want that as part of this approval. I rather them as part of, because those are informal meetings when we do them. So I'd rather them, you know, give them the stipulations when they come in for their application.
Okay. Very good.
Is there no parking in these 4 houses along Lawrence Parkway, or
Along these 4,
along these 4?
there would be parking permitted, just like there's parking permitted for the 4 homes upstream.
The 4 homes on the street are on a level.
Again, but it wouldn't be my decision to make, Mr. Merwin. That would be up to the county. If the county feels that parking should be restricted, then they will make parking restricted.
You know, I know the area. I know the area very well. Those 4 homes, not those 4 homes, but the homes across the street and homes on Woodland, utilize this property for parking now. So when they're no longer able to utilize this property for parking, they're going to have to seek alternative parking. So this is, that's definitely, you know, that is here. Those 4 homes are here. These 4 homes are here. Not, and it's not as sloped as that, but there is a line of sight problem there, and that could be a problem. And this board would not be able to order no on-street parking in front of those residents?
No,
that's a county
that's a
issue.
county road, so it would be out of the jurisdiction of this board.
That's a county issue.
So it could, so what, we have to go up to the county board to voice that concern, or do they take letters?
We'd have to get permission to put the signage up as we do on other county roads. We certainly address the issue if it,
So, any more questions from the public for this witness? Okay, close the public portion.
Good. I'll call Seth Lieb, our architect.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Mr. Lieb.
Hi, would you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're going to give this evening is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, Seth, could you provide your professional qualifications for the board, please?
Sure. I'm Seth Lieb, AIA from Seth A. Lieb Architect. I'm been licensed in the state of I'm a licensed architect in the state of New Jersey since 1995. I have a professional degree, a Bachelor of Fine Arts and a Bachelor of Architecture from Rhode Island School of Design, and I've testified before many, many boards in the state, but unfortunately not this board before.
Accepted. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
sir. You can't say that anymore after tonight.
That's correct.
So, Mr. Lieb, I know you brought some exhibits that you want to show the board. Do
Yes.
you want to start with those, and then we can talk about the floor plans that are up?
Sure. I brought 6 renderings of the 6 houses. So I'd like to show them. They are also electronic, but I will show them to you. So if everybody can see, this is 120, 129 and 131.
Let's see if we
They
can
have
put
it.
them up on the screen.
Keep going.
And this will be Exhibit A4?
Okay, it was in the packet.
It was already submitted.
Oh,
As
these
part-
already
as part of
submitted,
the
okay.
architectural
Then we don't
plans,
have to
yeah.
mark those.
All the way down.
I submitted as
Was it part of was it part of the architectural plans that we submitted for the application, or did you? Oh, okay. No, so we are gonna mark it
submitted today.
A4. Sorry, it was submitted today as an exhibit, so A4 it is, and we'll just call it package of what, 6 renderings?
Yes, they were sent in electronically.
So we're going
That's
to do
all right.
all 6 as A4? Okay, so we'll do all 6 of those renderings as A4 and call it rendering package.
There we go.
No, that's
No.
not it. They were 6 big files. Well, anyway.
Anyway,
I'll
just
show-
walk
I'll show
around.
them to you. So I'm going to take them starting in the lower right and going, starting on Lawrence is the very first 2 houses. Then I'm going to go around onto Woodland and then end on Norwood.
So you're going to start bottom right and go clockwise?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Okay? So this is, as was previously testified, I want to just make also a clarification. These are 12 single family houses. They are not duplexes. Okay, there is a difference because a duplex would be on one lot. These are all single families, but they share a wall, one common wall along the 0 lot.
Gotcha, so they're side-by-sides, but they're not technically,
Right.
they're not considered duplexes.
Okay, and each one of the houses is different. As mentioned previously, there's 2 one-bedroom houses, 4 2-bedroom, 4 3-bedroom, and 2 4-bedroom. So this is 2 one-bedroom houses, okay? Now, I will tell you just a couple things. I did visit the neighborhood a couple times. In these houses, I designed houses in residential neighborhoods, and I looked at the houses in the neighborhood to try and take my visual cues so that these would fit in and be consistent, and tried to also make them look like 2 single-family houses as much as possible. But this is the 2 one-bedroom, it's 1 level. And I'm going to address some of the concerns at the end, okay? So that's the first house, first 2 houses. These are the next 2 houses along Lawrence. So there's an entrance here, and an entrance here. Can everybody see okay? Okay. Should
I think it would be
show the
important if
audience
the
too?
people in the audience can see these renderings also.
Let me just go back a second. Let me have the other one. So two one-bedroom houses. Okay. So again, this is the next two houses on Lawrence. Then we go around the corner onto Woodland. So our next two houses. I'll talk about them at the end. I just want to show everybody first. Okay. So these two are the last ones in the top left, or top right before we turn on to Norwood.
Now, where is the second entrance on that home?
Aha, that's on the side here,
On the side, okay.
okay? So for everybody, for the question, it's on the right-hand side here, the second entrance. Then this is the two houses on Norwood. You might notice that the driveway isn't in front. That changed later on, so due to the grading and everything. Okay. So I wanted to show the houses. The colors that we've picked are very similar to what we would do. We would do a series of different colors. If you noticed, you may not have because I went through them relatively quick. But just to give an example, different colors, different window grill patterns, different shutters, different approaches, different volumes. Some are gables, some are hips. It wasn't always possible to hide the second door so that it would look like a single-family house more than a two-family, but we tried, or I shouldn't say two-family, but two side-by-side houses. But each has its own distinguished entrance. Another thing, if you looked at the floor plans, maybe you did, maybe you didn't, there are also all built-in sheds. So there's no need to have detached sheds on the property. They're all built into the floor plans and hidden in different places. All of the houses are of the highest Energy Star rating. Every project we do with Habitat is the highest that it can possibly be in terms of Energy Star, and we've actually done net zero houses before with Habitat. All have a domestic sprinkler system throughout as an extra protection. This is not required by the codes, but this is something that Habitat has chosen to do. All the units will conform to construction code for zero-lot line structures. Did this go off? All have individual heating and cooling systems. All the houses are handicap accessible, have accessible routes, as well as, so to answer the gentleman's question, the way that all of the Habitat houses are designed is so that if it should have one of the occupants as needing some mobility or accessible issues, everything on the first floor is adaptable. The bathroom on the first floor is completely handicap accessible, and a room in the house, except the one-bedroom houses, a room in the house can be easily converted to being a bedroom. It has a storage, it has the size, and it has a door. So it can be a bedroom in that case. And that's a requirement for all the Habitat projects. Some of the other things, as I mentioned, they do have different colors, and some have shutters, some don't, but they're all going to have vinyl with trim. Some will have circular vents, some will have square vents, some will have horizontal siding, some will have the shake look. We mix it up, some will have shake and siding to break up the plane, make it interesting, and break up the facade. For example, in this one, we broke it up with a pent roof going across. That's this horizontal thing, element that we use so as to break up the scale. That's about it.
That's all I have for Mr. Lee, if there's any questions.
I just wanted to say that it's such a pleasure to have actual photos of, the homes that you're going to be, because often we just get the architectural, and then we get a verbal description, but it's really helpful to see the actual photographs of the models that you're going to do, so I really appreciate that.
And unfortunately, we didn't bring, but we have we have projects where we've done the renderings before. The houses look like the renderings. They do stick to this. We spend a lot of effort to make these houses fit into the neighborhoods, and of course, I'm biased, but the neighbors like the houses because they do fit in.
Yeah, they're very nice.
So, board members, I just want to say that since I'm seeing the colored pictures first time too, should the board act favorably on the application, I would like to work with the architect to just fine tune or maybe add some features to it.
That's fine with us, sure.
Okay. Okay. Any questions from the board members? Mayor? No questions?
I have a comment. I really like the design of the houses. I could tell you're passionate in what you do. I appreciate that they all don't look the same. They are going to fit in the neighborhood. So I just want to thank you guys for that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And with that, I'll open it up to the public for any questions regarding this witness's testimony, for the architecture only. Okay, I don't see any hands, so we'll close the public portion.
I'll call Eric Keller, our planner.
Good evening.
Do you swear or affirm your testimony this evening is going to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Keller, your professional qualifications, please.
Certainly. Eric Keller, K-E-L-L-E-R, with Bowman Consulting Group. I've been a licensed professional planner in the state of New Jersey since 1987. I've testified before numerous boards throughout the state and in Superior Court as a planner. I don't believe I've been here, but if it was quite some time ago. So now I can say I have appeared here.
Nevertheless, board accepts them.
Accepted, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Keller, really the purpose of your testimony here, we've got a couple of deviations from the redevelopment plan. It is a redevelopment project. But can you just take the board through those deviations and explain our justifications for those?
Certainly. And these were summarized in the review memo dated December 5th. In Section G, we have 4 deviations. The minimum landscape area, and that's for 2 lots, lots 128.14 and 128.16. 128.14 is facing Lawrence Parkway, and 128.16 faces Woodland. 0.4, a ratio of 0.4 is required, and we're providing 0.33 for lot 128.14 and 0.34 for lot 128.16. We have 2 lots that have decks on them, which are lots 128.13 and 128.14. They are only allowed to be 2 feet off of the ground maximum, and and that ranges between 3.4 feet to 3.4 to 4 feet for lot 128.13 and 2.1 to 2.7 feet for lot 128.14. As Mr. Fick testified, we are the 2 lots on Norwood. I can keep going. I don't. Those are 4-bedroom units under RSIS. They require 2.5 spaces per unit. We have 2 spaces per unit on the property. RSIS does permit on-street parking to be counted to meet the requirement. Overall, we meet the parking, but those 2 lots don't have 2.5 spaces on the lot itself. And then the last deviation is the minimum length of the 2-car driveway. The intent was that the driveways would be tandem parking front to back, which all the lots have, except for lot 140.11, where we have a driveway that's side by side. It's 18 feet deep, but it's 20 feet wide, where the others are 10 feet wide by 36 feet long.
So effectively, it's the same, but it doesn't comply with what the redevelopment plan had contemplated, so it is a technical deviation. Putting this in the context of the municipal land use law, these all are C2 variances, where we have to show that the purposes of planning, as outlined in the municipal land use law, are advanced by the deviations requested, and the benefits of the deviations would substantially outweigh any detriment. So we do note, as you've heard tonight, this is a 100% affordable project. It is veteran preference. And what that means is that if there are 12 veterans who qualify for this community, it will be 100% veteran occupied. The only reason it would not be for veterans is that you don't have enough who qualify. So if you have a lot of veterans who can qualify, you'll have 12 homes occupied by veterans.
How do you get the word out? If I might be jumping ahead a little bit, but how do you get the word out to the veterans?
They have, Habitat has a very strong affirmative marketing plan. They have waiting lists. They have people who, throughout their region that they serve, people who are looking for housing. There is more demand than they have product. And Habitat, I've worked for Mars Habitat for a lot of years doing a lot of different projects. And they're doing a lot of larger projects, that you don't maybe normally see. This is a mid-range project. We have one currently in Randolph, Morris County, that's 25 units. So they have a very strong plan. They will get that word out, and they have people who are already looking for homes. So we just need to get approval and start building. So if we can get 12 veteran families, they'll be living here.
Right.
So,
Very good.
So the purposes of planning that are advanced include Purpose A, which is a promotion of public health, safety, morals, and general welfare. The relief supports the advancement of this inherently beneficial use, 100% affordable, to provide housing for low and moderate income families in the area. And Purpose G, to provide sufficient space for a variety of residential uses to meet the needs of all New Jersey citizens. Now, the specifics, the deviation in minimum landscape area, it's really a function, it's a very unique shaped parcel. It has 3 frontages. We worked very hard on how to lay this out, working with the county and the township on coming up with a plan that balances everything. It's a challenge. So I said that we are at 0.33 for lot 12814. To put that in context, we're short by 126 square feet. So it's not a lot. The other lot, excuse me, lot 12816 is short 123 square feet. Now, we could play games with lot lines, but we wanted to have a uniform, regular pattern so that it's very clear, what's your lot and where the area is. And on those 2 lots, we came up a little short. The deviation for the height of the decks above grade, we did that because we wanted to have a flatter lawn area. We're also, as you can see, these are small lots, so we have to grade from one lot to another. We wanted to minimize having retaining walls. We could have put a retaining wall in, brought that grade up, but now it's added cost, it's added maintenance for the homeowner. So we chose to ask for a deviation for greater separation. I mean, it's not a lot. The one lot, 12813, it's a maximum one corner of 4 feet. And that's at the edge of the deck. So, and that's not an excessive height above ground. The parking requirement, I really kind of touched on. There is parking permitted on the street on Woodland. We are going to widen the roadway so that there is a parking lane that doesn't quite exist today. It does if you park part on the pavement and part on the grass. And we're going to formalize that, put in curb, and have an actual parking lane. So there will be parking. I will note in the RSIS that half a space per unit in that standard is for visitor parking. So I think it's reasonable and appropriate to say that the visitors to those two homes would park on Woodland and walk up the sidewalk a short distance. The length of the driveway, I really kind of already covered. They're side by side instead of end to end. So really, it's kind of a technical deviation. Now, I do need to touch on the negative criteria, at least briefly. I'll be quick. And the board must find that each of these deviations can be granted without substantial detriment to the public good and without substantially impairing the intent and purpose of the zone plan and zoning ordinance. In this case, it's the 2021 redevelopment plan. And essentially, this plan is in compliance with the redevelopment plan that was prepared. As Vina indicated, that was based on a concept plan. And as you get into engineering and really work out the details, we came up with what are really very minor deviations. I think overall, this plan meets the 5 objectives set forth in that redevelopment plan. I won't go through each of them. I'm sure you all know what they are. We're taking what is now a vacant lot. It was the senior center. It's not something that's vital or vibrant today. And we're going to provide opportunities for 12 families to live on this property and have a home of their own. As Mr. Lieb indicated, these are modern homes. They're well-built, high-quality, energy-efficient homes that are going to be a positive for the community. So in closing, there's no impairment to the redevelopment plan. The proposed use complies, and we have just really a couple of very minor deviations from the redevelopment plan. Now, I guess I should talk about the design waivers real briefly.
Yeah.
Okay. So there are, and this is on page 5 of the review memo, there are 7 design waivers. One is walkways. I'm not sure where we have, the accessible route to, on some of these lots, you can see that there's an accessible route to the rear of the unit, and those walkways are 3 feet wide. They're compliant. We need to provide an accessible entrance to all of these units. We can't physically do it through the front door in all cases. So that's where we have a narrow walkway, or narrower than the plan permits, but a 3-foot walkway is more than sufficient for that. The travel lane and parking lane width on Lawrence Parkway, if you take the sum, the total requirement is 20.4 feet. We do have 20.4 feet. We've just given it a wider travel lane and a little bit narrower parking lane. So we're still providing the half width that's required. We just allocated it a little differently. The parking lane width on Woodland is also 6 feet wide. We're doing that to really, it's sufficient for parking. We're just trying to minimize the amount of additional pavement and to provide an adequate travel lane along Woodland. And just the landscape strip width on Woodland, we're actually exceeding the minimum, which is 2 feet. We're providing 3. We really don't like to do 2 because it ends up not being grass. It ends up being dirt and, a couple of weeds. So we went with a little bit wider path or grass strip in that area, which is consistent with the other streets. The landscape width on Norwood is actually 3 feet wide. The 4 feet is from the curb to the right-of-way line. The grass strip is 3 feet, which on that street it's supposed to be 3.5, so we're 6 inches short. But again, we're trying to balance having a sidewalk and where that is placed. And the last design waiver, Vina kind of touched on this, is that we're requesting that, at least for this board, that along Woodland and Norwood, that we do the additional right-of-way as an easement and not as a fee dedication to the township. The township retains all the rights you would otherwise, you just don't own the land. And honestly, you know, from a functional standpoint, anything behind the curb, you're not maintaining anyhow. It's the homeowner's responsibility. So you still have rights to it, you just don't own it, and the homeowner still has to maintain it. The roadway itself, and this applies even on the county road, the roadway itself is within the existing right-of-way. What we're talking about is the grass strip and the sidewalk area that would be partially in the existing right-of-way and in this widened easement area that the township would have rights to. So I think that's everything.
Good. I have nothing further from Mr. Keller. If there are questions. Dina?
I don't have any questions for Mr. Keller.
Nothing from Mr. Keller?
Mr. Chairman, just to, on that last, address the board on that last item with regard to the easement versus the dedication. This does occur in other municipalities. It does occur in different situations where it makes more sense to accept these by way of easement versus dedication. It really is more of a legalese type of basis. It's not really any different of an impact to the municipality. Still has, I've drafted these before, they still have all the same rights and abilities to utilize that area, whether it be by easement or dedication. It comes down to really how it ends up being calculated for, you know, impervious coverage purposes and what land is actually still owned by the property owner versus the municipality, but otherwise the municipality still has all the same rights and abilities when granted by easement.
Thank you for that, Joe. Okay, so the board, Mr. De Palma?
I just have, just clarify for the landscape strip width on Norwood, right? So the requirement's 3.5, the proposal's 4, but you said it was 3.
The
So
requirement is 3.5. We're providing 3. There was, it's misnoted in the review where it said it was 4. We're not providing 4 feet.
Okay.
We're providing 3 feet, consistent with the other streets.
Okay. Because I thought you were explaining that it was the grassy area plus something else equal, but the grass area was 3. So it's, yeah, you're providing 3 instead of 3.5.
Correct.
Not
Yes,
4, that's notated on here.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions?
On the ground floor decks, is it around the side of the house where the walkway is, and is it by an entry door?
Even with my glasses on, I can't see that part.
The 2 decks in question.
So the 2 lots that have decks are 12813 and 12814, which are the pair of homes just to the west of the second pair of homes on Lawrence Parkway. Those have accessible entrances to the front door. So if you're on the sidewalk on Lawrence Parkway, you can walk right into the home.
Okay,
So
so-
the decks are not accessible.
And
from
not the point of entry?
They are correct.
Okay.
So there'll be no stairs on the decks?
No, there are stairs on the
There are,
decks.
okay. That was my question,
If you're
yeah.
not mobility limited, you could walk off the deck into your backyard.
Okay.
If you are, then you're going to have to.
Have a ramp?
The threshold is? Inside. Is there any kind of special ADA threshold that goes in on those sliders, or is it just a typical threshold? It is, okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
There's another question.
Another question?
I have a quick question. Someone here asked if the stairs will be able to have a seat that goes up if it's wide enough, if the stairs are wide enough?
Well, as Mr. Lieb indicated, there's an ability to convert one of the rooms on the ground floor to an accessible bedroom. So,
Converts.
but as far as the stairs, I'm going to defer to Mr. Lieb.
Okay. Thank you.
What is the width of the stairs?
Why don't we bring, Seth, why don't you come back up? Grab a mic.
Remind you, you're still under oath.
So the stairs can accommodate the, I've installed those stair lifts in other houses for mobility purposes. And the stairs meet the requirements of the building codes, and they would allow for a stair lift to go up it.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. Okay, any other questions from the board? Okay, with that, I will open it up to the public if they have any questions for this witness. Okay, I don't see any hands, so we'll close the public portion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good. I have nothing further.
That concludes your testimony?
I would.
Okay. Okay, do we have any final questions or comments from the board professionals or board members for the application? Okay.
I would just like to say, having been around for a long time, and there were previous, people that had come forward that were going to provide this type of housing, well, I think another Habitat group, and unfortunately, it never came to fruition. So I'm myself, and I'm sure for the community, I'm really excited about this project, and I think it'll be a wonderful opportunity for people to come into Old Bridge and have housing that's appropriate. So.
Any other?
Yeah, I'd like to.
Joe?
Being new to here, but living in Old Bridge for almost 30 years, I'm real proud of being part of this council and this committee trying to push this forward. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, any final, okay, yeah, 1 second. Any final summarization?
Nope.
That concludes your
No,
testimony?
that concludes it. I think the board heard enough. Thank you.
Okay. And then we'll open it up again for final public comments. Sir?
Hey there. Jonathan Massey, Massey, 14 Wayland Drive. Seems like an amazing project. I'm involved with some organizations here in town that do philanthropic work. I'm wondering, and I didn't know where this question would go in, but how is this being funded, since it seems the town's not paying for it? Is it all Habitat financed, or is there other financing?
Sure. Well, I can take a crack at addressing that. So there's a couple sources of funding. One is through state grant programs. So that's the bulk of the funding. The other, the township is, as you might have heard before, contributing $300,000 from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. And the town is also contributing the land to the to the project. So between those sources of funding, that gets Habitat the bulk of the way to where it needs to be to complete construction.
And that covers all costs, including construction and?
Correct.
Okay.
And they still take donations, if no one heard that.
And how, if somebody would like to donate, how do they go about doing it? Just go online, or? Okay. Very good. Any other comments from the public? Okay, we'll close it out, and we'll go to Joe to summarize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A vote in favor of this application will be a vote for the granting of a major preliminary and final subdivision and a major preliminary and final site plan application with the requested deviations under the variance review and waivers that were testified to before the board. There were a few, aside from the standard conditions that the board imposes, including outside approvals, and in this case, because it is an affordable housing, because it is a redevelopment area, entering into redevelopment agreements with the municipality, the applicant did indicate that they will comply with the board professional reports, except as otherwise identified, being that they wish to provide an opportunity to work with the township professionals to address items 4D, 4F, 4H, and 5A. And also, there was the applicant agreed to work with the township officials on the final design of the architecture for the residence. And aside from that, that's all the conditions I have.
Joe?
Oh, well, Mr. Lavalos, the conservation engineers, the conservation officer's report will be addressed through the the township.
Joe, should there be a need if the if the county requires a dedication, then we would commit to amending the redevelopment plan.
Okay, we'll include that in the resolution as well, and in the vote, that if required and the county won't accept the dedications by way of easement, then the township will take the process of going forward with amending the redevelopment plan.
Okay, Nicole or Vina, do you have any additions to the summary, or all good? Okay, and before we put this to vote, I want to reiterate what everybody else on the board has said, and some haven't, and I'm not speaking for all, but I think we all feel the same way, that this is a great project and a big step to bringing in this type of veterans housing or veteran preferred housing into Old Bridge. We really appreciate it.
Good.
Okay,
Thank you.
And with that, I'll put it to a vote. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to be honored to make a motion for approval.
Thank you, Mayor Henry.
Second.
Second.
And second by Ms. Cannon.
Chairman Marucci?
Yes.
Ms. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Lenning?
Yes.
Mayor Henry?
Yes.
Mr. De Palma?
Yes.
Mr. Lauer?
Yes.
Mr. Renner? Mr. Petty?
Yes.
Mr. McIsaac?
Yes.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Good luck.
Have a good night.
And I encourage everyone to participate in the volunteer hours to get over there. And I got my tool belt ready again. So I look forward to it. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to take a 5-minute break in between applications. So we'll come back at about 8:52, 8:53. Okay, just a quick announcement. We generally don't take any new applications past 10 o'clock, and we stop at 10:30, but if you're mid-witness, mid-testimony, we will allow it to go past. So with that, we'll present our, if I can find my agenda. Our next application is 12-2022P, Alfieri Oldbridge Associates LLC, major preliminary subdivision with major preliminary site plan with C variances, and the applicant proposes to create three-lot subdivision for residential and commercial mixed use containing 529 residential units, 60,000 square feet of office space, and 157,600 square feet of, 157,600 square feet of additional office space and associated parking.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. For the record, my name's Frank Petrino. I'm with the law firm of Eckerd Siemens. We were here on the 27th. Board took jurisdiction, and then the evening ended with the vote on the deferral of the landscape plan. There was no continuation date, so we reserved and published notice. Notice was served on the 28th of November, published in the local paper on the 27th. So I'd ask your attorney to confirm that the board continues to have jurisdiction.
Mr. Chairman, that is confirmed. I did receive a packet of the notice, reviewed it, and it was acceptable.
Thank you.
Okay. Just let me briefly go through the application, because as described on your summary, it's not accurate.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
So the premises that we're talking about is located in the MU-IH zoning district. It's a designated inclusionary development in the township's court-approved housing element and fair share plan. Has frontage on both Lawrence Harbor and Matawan Road and Biondi Avenue on the south, and it's designated on the township tax map as lots 411, 613, block 2150. I don't have a street address. So we are seeking preliminary major subdivision approval to create three lots. Lot A is the residential component of the development. It's 64.92 acres. Lot B consists of 25.21 acres. And nothing is proposed for development on that site at this time, but we are seeking subdivision approval to create it. That would be the lot on which the non-residential development would be proposed and hopefully constructed. Lot C is 4.41 acres. We need lot area and lot coverage variances for that lot. That lot is to be conveyed to the condominium, I guess it's the Bridgepoint Condominium Association. Alfieri agreed to donate that land and to build on that land a 50-car parking lot. Apparently there are problems within the condominium, and if the entrance road, and you'll pardon my ignorance, I forget the name of the entrance road that into that condominium that's adjacent to the Alfieri property. There's a lot of parking on that road. There's a lot of a lot of parking on the roads within the condo. So they had asked during the, I guess during the process of the creation of the affordable housing plan for consideration, and the Alfieri organization agreed to give them the land. That land will become part of the condominium, and it will have 50 parking spaces. It'll be built in two phases, actually. I think 30 spaces will be built first, and then if more were needed, there's provision for an additional 20. So we're also asking for preliminary major site plan approval for phase one. Phase one is lots A and C, A being the residential, C being the parking lot I just discussed. On Lot A, 529 residential apartment dwelling units are proposed. 423 would be market rate, 106 would be low and moderate income. Some of those are very low. There would obviously be other site improvements, landscaping, active and passive recreational amenities, the usual. We would also propose 1,079 parking spaces, of which 27 are ADA spaces. And on Lot C, the parking lot. Now, we are asking for a variance from the zoning district phasing linkage schedule, which is also part of the settlement plan, to permit all of the 529 residential dwelling units to be constructed on Lot A in advance of development of the 60,000 square foot office building, sometimes referred to as a flex building, on parcel B, and subsequent to the balance of the development of 157,000 square feet of office. You'll hear more about this. We've provided the marketing studies. There's a provision in the settlement agreement. And by the way, the settlement agreement can only be modified by the court. There's a provision in the settlement agreement for eliminating the residential, non-residential totally, if the market is not currently able to support it. We're not asking for elimination of the non-residential. We are asking that we be able to build all the residential units before being asked to pursue a 60,000 square foot building, which can't be built unless you want to lose maybe $5 million in the process to build the shell and have no market at this point for that building. We have a general catch-all in our notice for other variances, deviations, or RSI exceptions. So we have one RSIS exception relating to the size of parking spaces. We go back and forth with staff on this sometimes. RSIS supersedes the township standard. There's no question about it. 9 by 18 spaces is what RSIS requires, and that's what we're proposing to provide. We have 4 witnesses, the same 4 folks that were here on October 27th. Our first witness is our architect, Dave Minow, who will take you through and describe for you the improvements proposed for Site 1, meaning Phase 1 on Lot A, and the improvements on Lot C, which are not much to look at. It's a parking lot, but we'll show you that. And he's also going to tell you about the elevations and floor plans for the units. He's got with him the unit mix and location chart, so we can go. I don't know if there's been confusion, but we want to make it clear where all the units are and what's above the stream and what's below Whale Creek, and what types of buildings they'll be. He also will tell you about the materials that will be used to construct these buildings. Secondly, we have Craig Rankamp, who will actually come up twice, but the first time he comes up, he's going to talk to you only about the phasing variant. Our third witness is Carl Penke, our traffic consultant, and he'll go through the off-site and off-track road improvements along Lawrence Harbor, Mattawan Road on both sides of the parkway, and what we propose to do and how it's consistent with the terms of the settlement agreement. Our engineer will then come forward and give you just general information about stormwater and other issues that have been raised. But one thing, before we go further, I want to make clear, because it gets confused in a lot of the memos. Lot 5.12 has nothing to do with this application. 5.12 is vacant parcel that will be used for reforestation purposes under our CAFRA approval. Has nothing to do with this application. So I get comments about Lot 5.12, but they're all irrelevant to this application. Also, comments on the site plan or on the buildings to be built on Lot B. We have provided, because we had to provide it, and we did provide it, and we happily provided it to DEP to get our CAFRA permit and 7 other DEP permits so that we could move ahead with both the residential and the non-residential components of this project. Now, we have submitted an overall plan that shows you the layout on Lot B, and we've submitted architectural plans. I mean, we've gone to great lengths to make you understand that that office component is something that we understand is our commitment. We made it. We signed an agreement. It's within, we're going to stay within the 4 corners of that agreement, and we're going to honor our agreement until the end of the 3rd round, and that is July of 2025. So that lot is not part of this application. You see in the memos, even though from the beginning of time, when we responded to the first memo that we received 138 days after we submitted revised plans, we mentioned several times and to other consultants that Lot B is not part of this application and Lot 5.12 is not part of this application. So I just want the board to be very clear that we're not going to provide any testimony on any issues in any report that relates to Lot B, because there's no site plan application, and to Lot 512, because that is covered by CAFRA. We've restricted 2 areas in that Lot 5.12 for CAFRA, and there is nothing in that lot that's going to be developed. It is strictly a reforestation area that was required by DEP. So unless you have questions for me, I'm going to ask Mr. Minow, who's sitting next to me, to raise his hand and testify.
Would you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're going to give this evening is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Dave, just quickly, by whom are you employed and in what capacity?
I'm employed by Minow and Wasco Architects and Planners.
Can you
I'm a
state and
principal.
spell your name, please?
Yes, it's David Minow, M-I-N-N-O.
Thank you.
I'm a founding partner of Minow and Wasco Architects and Planners. We're about a 95-person firm based in Lambertville and with offices in Newark, New Jersey. I have my educational background as I have a Master of Architecture from the University of Pennsylvania, and I've been practicing for about 35 years. I'm a registered architect in the state of New Jersey, as well as a planner, but I'm only testifying this evening as an architect, and my license is current.
Accepted.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Before I let you go and freestyle, just a couple of questions. Did you prepare or supervise the preparation of the architectural plans for Phase 1? That's the residential component dated September 1, 2022, a 22-sheet set of plans?
Yes.
Did you prepare or supervise the preparation of the unit mix and location chart?
Yes.
Okay. And did you assist Mr. Kuchera and his office in the preparation of the landscape plan?
Not the landscape plan, but the layout plan,
Okay.
the site design.
All right, thank you. I think you have 6 topics that you want to address. So
Yeah.
let me give you the floor.
Maybe I could ask for some exhibits to be put up. The second file there, the second PDF. If you could open that.
Mr. Sardillo, these were all submitted, but if you want to mark them.
These are the plans that were originally submitted?
Well, it's, the only difference is that they're colorized, and I've also added the civil engineer's landscape plan into my set. I just want to refer,
Mark 'em. Okay.
I just want to refer to this plan for the site layout.
All right, can you just identify what it is, so, for the record, and then go into your
Sure, this is a plan prepared by Civil and Environmental Engineering, Inc., which is the current landscape plan that's been submitted. It's in a colorized form.
So it's a colorized landscape plan, and it's A1.
Yeah, that's correct.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to address the site plan. You know, when you're laying out a very large project, 500-unit plus project like this, it's an interesting thing to do in terms of trying to keep in focus what you want to see as you drive and walk through a community like this. And we have taken the approach in the design of this project of what I would call a traditional neighborhood development. And what that means in layman's terms is that you try to front the buildings on the roadways and open space and try to put the parking as much as you can behind the building. So as you drive through the main roads or walk through the main roads in the community, what you see is great landscaping and beautiful architecture, and the parking sits generally behind these buildings. So if you study the plan a little bit, you'll see that format here, and I think it's a very successful way to do it rather than sort of the random rolling roads that have just lines of buildings one after the other. This has some sense of urban design. Along with that, we go through and we've added a series of small pocket parks, but we have a main organizing park as you come in the project. And this open space is almost 2 acres coming off of Lawrence Harbor Road. And that park will be significant just as a common open space between Site B, which will be more of the commercial properties, and the residential community. But it provides a passive open space like you rarely see in residential communities. I have one, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the open space here that I'm referring to, almost 2 acres in size. We have additional pocket parks like the 2 adjacent to this building. We have parks here and here between some of the longer buildings. Off of the 2 buildings that front on Biondi Road, we have a park adjacent to those 2 buildings. And then we have our major club facility, which I'll talk about later. So the site is really organized around that principle of traditional neighborhood design. And where that came from, that idea came from, older towns in New Jersey, when they were developed, didn't have automobiles. They had horses and buggies, and they obviously had streets that they built houses on, and there was a horse barn behind the house. And later, those horse barns had a driveway added, and the car was put behind the house. And that's what makes some of the older communities in New Jersey charming. Now, I'm not saying that a 500-unit apartment project is going to have that same kind of charm, but the idea is transferable of trying to eliminate as many views of the car as you're going through the streets as possible. So that's the planning principle there. If you could move on to the next slide. I'm going to walk you through the buildings, and the first set I'm going to walk through are the larger buildings. There are 3 of them. They're 40-unit buildings. And I'm walking you through a series of floor plans. Now, the interesting thing about these 3 buildings is that they are split in grade by a full story. So they're 4 stories on each side, but the lower level, which you're looking at here, of building type A, has 15 garages that enter on the lower level off of the parking lot behind the building.
Can I interrupt for 1 minute?
Sure.
And we need to mark this exhibit as A2?
Okay, this is part of the submitted.
Well, yeah, the other one I could see you made some edits to. That's what I apologize. I was going to jump in as well. Is this just a version of the floor plan or
It is.
building plan that
Yeah.
was submitted. So this hasn't changed, there was no alterations to this one?
Correct.
Okay, so if we could just identify where, which page it is in the plan, so that, for the record and for the board
Yeah,
members,
it's,
and then we don't have to
It's
worry about.
sheet A01 in the plan set.
Okay.
So this shows the 15 garages that we have on this lower level with a pedestrian entry here. Coming into, we have some mailboxes located in that pedestrian entry. This gray area here is what I would call a trash termination room. One of the things that makes these buildings upgraded in terms of the rental apartment market is they're elevator-served buildings, and the trash is stored within dumpsters and compacted within the building. So we don't have outside dumpster areas with trash spilling all over the parking lots. We have a very contained system where the trash comes down a chute from the units above into a compacting room, and recyclables are also brought down to this room through the elevator, which you see here, to that area for trash pickup. So the trash truck pulls up in front of this, takes the containers out of the building, unloads them and puts them back in, so there's not trash sitting outside for any period of time. So it makes it a very modern building. We have 2 exit stairways here from above. And then this gray area along the back of this lower level plan also is something that's very interesting and I think a very positive aspect of the plan. We have storage units for each of the units in the building. And this is a place where people can keep suitcases, seasonal decorations, snow tires, whatever they want to keep, a surfboard. They have an enclosed area which is lockable for each unit. So they're not going to self-storage units typically, and it does provide a nice means of storage. This is included also for the affordable units. Let's go to the next level. Again, our elevator going up is here. So this is sort of a half level that I just showed you. Now we're looking at
Can I
sheet.
stop you for 1 second?
Sure.
So some of these buildings on the unit mix chart, some are A1, A2.
This is A1.
Okay, when we go back to the first one, what was that?
A1. This is all part of the same building.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, if you could go to the next sheet where you were. Thank you. This is sheet A02, and it shows what is the first residential floor. So the street side of this building is located toward the top here, and our main pedestrian entry to the lobby is there. So if somebody was coming to pick you up or you had a visitor, this is generally the location that would be used to access the main lobby. Our elevator is here in the center. Our trash room here, which has a chute that goes down to that lower level, is located in the center of the building. And we have a series of dwelling units around a double-loaded corridor with a mix of affordable units, which are shown as COA units, and regular market rate units. And I'll talk about the mix of units later, but it's important to note that the affordable units are spread very evenly throughout the entire community. I think out of the total number, or out of the total buildings here, there are only a couple of buildings that do not have affordable units. So we're very, very consistent with that.
Let me just stop you for 1 second. The 2 buildings south of Whale Creek.
Yes.
Are 100% affordable.
That's correct. And we'll show you those buildings. Okay. Go to the next sheet, please. This is sheet A03. And again, this is what would be the second residential level. Again, double-loaded corridor, elevator, and trash room. Next slide. So here we're going up to the third residential level. It's pretty much a repeat, and then go to the last level. So this is the top level, and you'll understand this when you see the elevations, but this is only a half level on one side of the building. It's because the building is split in grade by 1 floor. We have 4 stories on one side, 4 stories on the other, and it's like slipped on itself so that from grade on each side, you're seeing 4 stories. So if you go to the next sheet, which is A06, this shows 2 elevations. This would be the front elevation. It would be the main front door that I mentioned where visitors would enter. And then this would be 4 stories of units shown from that side. And if you look at the side elevation, you would be looking at the right side of this building for this elevation. So you see 4 stories here, and then this is where that half story drops out on that upper level. And this is where the garage level comes in on the lowest level. So it's a split 4 stories and 4 stories with a full story of grade breaking within the building itself. It's a really creative solution to handle a split grade type of situation. Next slide. This shows the lower side of the building, meaning the garage side. We do have a pedestrian entry here and the 2 stairway entries. And then we have our main portion of the building with hipped roofs at the top to break down the scale, turn gable roofs, box bay windows, balconies, divided light windows, and basically stone material on the bottom. These slides are showing up a little washed out because of the light in the room, but they're actually quite detailed in terms of the stonework in the building itself. Next slide. We're going to go on to sheet A8, which shows typical floor plans, typical 1-bedroom floor plan, 2-bedroom, and 2-bedroom corner unit. So this is where the corridor would be coming in. You come in the corner and you have a view right through the unit, through a beautiful window, 2-sided living room, 2-sided windows in the living room space, kitchen in the center, and 2 split bedrooms, 2 bathroom and closet areas.
And this is still all building A?
Yeah, these units are pretty much typical throughout. Next slide. So this is a more typical building in the project. This is our B-type building. These are all 24-unit buildings.
What sheet is this?
This is sheet A09.
Thank you.
And this is the ground floor, which shows 8-unit floor plan for this building. And then we have our 2 entries with a single stairway on each side. And we show our affordable units in here on this floor. Next slide, please, is A010, which would be the second floor plan, A10. Here we have the upper level floor plan, which is typical, but our stairway brings you up and enters 4 units with some mechanical space in the corridor. Next slide. And then we start, that's typical 2nd and 3rd floor. And then we see the elevations, which show the front of the building with our main entries here, strong gable with a hip turn at the top, bay windows on either side, stone coming up to the 2nd floor around the central portion, and then our typical end elevation for the building.
This is 3-story, how many?
3 stories.
And how many feet?
I'd have to look that up. Our building height is 48 feet, 6 3/4 inches. And that's to the, that's according to the building height calculations based on the ordinance.
I hate to make you look.
We're in conformance. We're in conformance with the height on all buildings.
I forgot to ask you the height of the building A type.
Again, building A height, I believe, is 48 6 3/4 inches. Again, because it's split by the 2 sides of the building.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I misspoke there, Frank. It's 54 feet, 8 3/4 inches on building A.
Thank you.
And the height in the zone is 60 feet, so we're within that. So now we're back to building B. Could you go to the next slide, please? This shows the other two sides of the building. The non-entry side here. This would be what we would call the rear of the building, but you see the materials are consistent all around all four sides. And this is the other end elevation.
And this, again, is A12.
A12. Next slide. Again, typical floor plans for this building, showing a typical one-bedroom plan on the left and a two-bedroom corner unit on the right. Next slide. And this shows building type C. Now, these are the two buildings which are on the site plan off of Biondi Drive on the far side of Whale Creek. And this is an all affordable building. In this building, again, we have a split grade condition where this is the low side of the building and we're entering here. We have 4 COA units that access off of a corridor. And let me just be clear about that. So we do have a small, in this center area, we have a club room which is associated with this building. That's a small sitting area with a, probably we'll have a game area, maybe a pool table we're showing in there, but basically a lounge area. So if you had a small gathering for a few people that were bigger than your dwelling unit could take, you could reserve this, or you could be in the clubhouse facility itself. And we'll talk about that later. We have our 2 exit stairways on the end. So this is the lower level of a split grade building. And this building is basically what I would call a 2-3 split. It's 2 stories on one side, 3 on the low side.
And these are the fully affordable buildings?
I'm sorry?
The fully affordable buildings?
Yes.
Okay.
Next slide. This is the typical middle floor here, and it shows 10 units per floor and the 2 exit stairways at either end. This is sheet A15. Next slide. So here you see the upper portion of the building, which is 2 stories in height, has a stone base and stone coming up near the 2 front areas. We have a turn gable, hip roofs at the end, dormer windows to decorate the roof. They're not active dormers. And then you see the grade split on the second elevation on sheet A16, which shows the 2 stories on the right-hand side and 3 stories on the lower side. These particular buildings are, again, 24 units each. Next slide. This slide shows the upper level, the 3-story side of the building. And again, the materials are consistent with the stone base, stone coming up to the second level around the main entryway. And we have the typical cementitious siding, same materials as the mixed market and affordable units on the other side of Whale Creek. It's just different because of the grade split. Here is a little bit less. I mean, we have a lower building because it's a 2-3 split versus the 4-4 split or the flat 3-story buildings on the other side. Next slide. This shows, again, some of the floor plans in the affordable units, and we're required to have some 3-bedroom affordables, which are shown on the right. Beautiful diagonal plan with a corner living room and then 3 bedrooms with a split master. And then we have a straight inline 2-bedroom unit, again with the bedroom split. We find this is a much better situation than having the bedrooms together. People like the privacy of having the bedroom split where we can do that. Next slide. So now we're moving to the club facility, which is really the heart of the community. Not only is it something you use recreational, but it also serves a function for the entire community where people generally come here almost once a day. And one of the reasons we have that is that package delivery is really handled here at the club facility, along with all the beautiful club amenities, which I'll describe. When you have an apartment community like this, you all know how many packages you get in your home, especially during the holiday season. And it just is a never-ending stream of packages. And that has to be managed well, or it's a huge problem. So we have a great drop-off in front of the club facility where packages are brought in to the management staff. You may be away at work while that package comes. So there's a package storage room here in the management office, and you get a text message saying you've got a package on your way home. You can stop by and pick it up at the clubhouse. And part of it's, oversized packages. Part of it's in package lockers where you get a combination. You get a code to go in and key in a code and open up a locker with your package. So we've found in our experience with these larger communities and the number of deliveries each day that really needs to be managed. So entering the clubhouse, we do have our management and leasing office here. We have a small kitchen facility just for coffee for the management staff. And we have our club room to the rear. And this is a beautiful living room situation with both gaming areas, seating areas, and French doors which lead out to the rear portion leading to the pool deck, which is behind the building. This also leads out to an area where we have outdoor grilling, summer kitchens. People can't grill on their unit balcony. That's against the code, so we need to provide a gas grilling area out here for them. We have some fire pit areas that'll be open till about 10 o'clock at night, and then they automatically shut off where people can gather and sit around fire pit areas in the shoulder seasons. And then on the right side of the clubhouse, we have what we call a business center, but it's actually sort of a co-working space. A lot of people today don't have to go to work every day. They can work at home. But sometimes they want to get out of their apartment and work in a more formal kind of business type area. So there's some conference tables. There might be a video room where they can do more professional Zoom meetings for work. And we found this to be a big asset to the working community within this project. We have in the center a fitness on demand room. This is where you can have a video fitness program run in there, and sometimes there will be an outside instructor brought in to run classes. That's also an area where stretching and yoga can be taught. We have our restrooms located centrally in the middle, both with indoor access, and then we have an outdoor door which comes in from the pool area so people can access that area from the pool. And then we have a very large active fitness area in the back of the clubhouse. This has got full gym equipment located there. Our total square footage for the club facility is 8,840 square feet. And we do have a small basement there. And the reason we have a basement is the pool area obviously has deck chairs in the summertime, chaise lounges, those types of things. And the patio will have more dining tables and umbrellas, those kind of things. So we need an area to store those. So we've built that into the clubhouse with a basement area below, and that's where our mechanicals will be located. So I think that sort of ends this portion of it. What I'd like to do, if I could, sure.
To the right, it's circled by landscaping. What's that area? Is that just a...
This area?
Yes.
Yeah, these are outdoor patio areas. I think you'll see when you get to the actual site plan testimony from the engineer. There'll be a little more description of these. But the pool area is generally even further back. So we've got a couple of seating areas located here. And one of the reasons we don't pull the pool right close to the clubhouse is that for about 7 months of the year, it's got a pool cover and it's not the most attractive thing to look at. But in this case, our pool really is going to be beautiful. We think it may be a infinity edge pool that overlooks the pond, the detention pond that sits behind that. So it's going to be a resort-like atmosphere created in this club facility. Let's go to the next slide. I want to show you what the club building looks like. So it's a jewel box type building, great materials again, stone base, stone coming up around the main entry. We've created a 2-story space at the entryway with clear story lighting. We've got a cupola on top that'll be lit at night. And we have beautiful high ceilings in here with transom windows and hip roofs in this location. This is a side elevation here, which carries the architecture around. That stone base carries around the entire building. This is sheet A20. And next slide. This shows the other 2 elevations. This is the elevation coming out this is the elevation coming out the club area. The rear showing all the glass from the club room. This is the exercise room here. I think we're showing on the back of that club room the potential for either like a nano wall type of full glass opening, or potentially almost like a garage door, a glass garage door, where we can create that indoor-outdoor kind of environment in the summer months.
This is sheet A21.
This is A21, and this is the other side elevation. Consistent with that, we show the fireplace location in the club room. I think that's the end of this set of slides, but I do have a material sample slide I'd like to show you.
Do you want to go to that or to the unit mix, just to go through the unit mix?
We could go to the unit mix. It's the first file. Okay, this is just sort of totaling all the buildings, and you see the building types located on the left-hand margin, and the market rate units are the first 3 columns here, and you see at the bottom we end up with 185 one-bedroom market rate units and 238 2-bedroom units, and it shows the distribution in each of the buildings on the site. And these 3 columns, the 1, 2, and 3 bedroom, are the affordables, and we have a total of 106 units of affordable units, and this is helping the township meet its affordable housing requirement. We have a total of 18 one-bedrooms, 64 2-bedrooms, and 24 3-bedroom units. And this meets the UHAC requirements for affordable housing in New Jersey. And then you see the 529 total on the right, and the total in each building on the right-hand side.
And I'm sorry, just for record-keeping purposes, I believe I've seen this. This was already previously submitted as part of the
Correct.
application, but can we just identify what it is for the record? What we're
It's
referring
called the
to?
Green and Old Bridge Unit Mix Chart.
Okay, thank you.
Well, unit mix and location chart.
Yeah.
So let me just ask you a couple of questions about this. So the C1, C2 buildings at the bottom of the chart, both 24 units, total 48. Those are the buildings that are below Whale Creek.
Yeah, they're the 2-3 split buildings, yeah.
Right. And they're all 2-bedroom and 3-bedroom units as required by the settlement agreement.
That's correct.
Okay. And then above, we have 18 buildings, and if I did my math right, 16 of the 18 are mixed, meaning they have affordable and market rate units.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
If you could go to the next slide exhibit, which shows the materials. This is a material sample board. Again, this is a little washed out. But I want to start with the stone material, which is the base of all of our buildings, and this is a veneer ashlar-type stone. It's got brown and river-type tones in it. It's going to work well with our cementitious siding. We have a beige color, a cobblestone-type color, and then we also have a fiber cement panel, which is a pearl gray. So these three color palettes really work very well. And then we have a cast stone cap. This is really just capping around the top of the stone walls and ledges that are shown, and some of the window sills and headers that are in the stone wall will be this more beige Starbuck color that fits with the stone that's there. And then we have a little bit of turned metal roof. When we, at the top of the roofs where we have turned gables and eaves, we've used a little bit of this, and we have the champagne colored roof, standing seam metal roof shown there. Divided light aluminum doors. You can hardly see them. And white railings. And our composite trim is Epic White, which you can't see. And another fiber cement panel, which is basically panel trim around the bay windows. That also is an Arctic White to blend in with the window color itself.
Can I ask a question, Mr. Chairman? Certainly. All of the architectural plans were submitted on November 18th. Now, do they, maybe this is for Vina.
Yeah, I would
do
defer
they
to
get?
Vina.
Do you get copies of those? You get 11 by 17 copies of those, so you can see the detail of all these things?
We distribute it digitally, and we distribute it digitally. We post it on the township's website, and we have a special software or website where we upload, which is only meant for the board members to review. So they did get the architecturals too.
So if I were looking at a computer screen, it wouldn't be as washed out as this?
No, because I'm projecting this, right? I see it better on the screen than what you're seeing on the. Yeah.
Oh, you can?
Yeah, you can see it better.
No, I can't see it.
Yeah, it's much better.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, I was just wondering, because I was hoping that the board had these, so they could have looked at them, or as they're sitting at their chairs, they would be able to look.
Yes, they're available to us, and they're much more clear.
Okay, thank you.
The white box looks good against the white background.
Yep. Polar bear eating marshmallows in a snowstorm.
I'd be happy to take any questions you might
I
have.
just had one quick, the standing seam, that's not throughout the entire
No, it's
building,
not the
correct?
entire roof.
It's mixed with,
The main roof is a dimensional shingle roof, yeah, composite.
So where would the,
We'd have to go back to the elevations, but what they're in portions of the eaves where we have turned gables, we show that, and then there's some standing seam roof on the clubhouse itself.
I have no further questions for Mr. Minna.
okay, Vina, anything from Mr. Minow?
I just want to, pertaining to the affordable buildings to the south of the creek, right? There were a lot of comments in the review memo. Some of them I'll save for the planner. But in terms of architecture, right? Now, these two affordable buildings are on Beyonde Avenue. Did you take a look at the existing buildings or structures on Beyonde Avenue? The size, the scale, the architecture, when you were designing these buildings?
I mean, I've driven down that street, and we know that there are individual small single-family homes on that street.
And they're mostly colonial style, right?
Mostly
You would
colonial style, yeah.
Right.
But
Because,
we really, our attempt here was to integrate the community entirely. In other words, the green at Old Bridge is meant to be tied together entirely, and we can't duplicate the scale of a single-family house. But we do have traditional architecture there. We do have pitched roofs. I mean, I do a lot of rental communities today that are flat roof contemporary buildings. And this is very traditional architecture compared to a lot of what we're seeing built in New Jersey right now. So it does fit in both here and with the townhome community on the other side. We were very conscious of that.
Okay. One of the issues or concerns I had was, you have these smaller colonial homes, and then you have a long expanse or a longer mass of building, which is roughly 175 feet. I made that comment in my memo too. So were there any efforts to break the rectilinear effect of that building so that it fits better into the community?
Well, I think one of the things that naturally does that is the scale of that side of the building is more the two-story side. In other words, if you remember, those buildings are a 2-3 split. So versus the rest of our community, which really starts at 3 stories and goes to 4 stories in some places, these buildings are really from this community side, from the Biondi Street side, Avenue side, are 2 stories in scale. We can't, to make them efficient multifamily buildings, we can't break them into 2-unit buildings or something. There's just not room there to do that. But we tried the best we can to keep the scale of that community, knowing that we still had to build larger buildings there.
So maybe this question is for Mr. Petrino, because I wasn't a part of the settlement agreement a few years back. Mr. Petrino, was there any attempt to include these affordable units into the inclusionary housing, the entire main, I call it the main because that's where the rest of the units are, to include these units into the main inclusionary development? Because I notice some of the buildings there are 3-story, some of them are 4-story. And I know when reading the settlement agreement that there was specific language that said that affordable units have to be within 3-story buildings. What was the rationale? Why were these units not incorporated in the other side of the stream, and why were they kept on the other side? Because what I noticed is when you submitted the original application, right, there were 52 affordable units on this side. Now, with some modifications, it has come down to 48. So which means there is room for you to move around the affordable units. So why were they placed on this side? Because, I mean, it's fundamentally against the inclusionary housing, and your planner will agree to that. But what was the rationale? Because I think most of us have the same question. Why were they put on the other side?
All right, I'm going to punt a little bit because I didn't negotiate the settlement agreement. Rick Hoff was the attorney involved. The language of the agreement is very clear, though. It says on the south side of the stream, creek, all units shall be affordable and be a mix of 3-bedroom and a disproportionate share of 2-bedroom. The original plan that we submitted was inconsistent with that because we had 1-bedroom units in those 2 buildings, and that's why it went from 52 to 48, because we had to move the 1-bedroom unit south. So this plan is consistent with the settlement agreement. Your question is, how did that language get into the settlement agreement?
Why were they separated? But because I failed to understand why were the affordable units, and that too, it's quite a lot, like 45% of the total 106 are on the other side. Why was that done? Because I have tried hard to rationalize it, and I cannot understand why that was done. And the reason I ask is this was an inclusionary zone created specifically for the project, right? Correct. Surrounding neighborhood is residential, the R40, I believe. So now, when you have a higher density zone.
You're talking about Biondi?
Yes.
And I should know this, is the township line is right there. So are those units in
Yes, they are.
Old
They are part of Old Bridge. So typically, So typically, when you have a zone with low density right next to a zone that has higher density, typically you would see more buffer between them, more screening, more landscaping, so that when those buildings are proposed architecturally, you could at least add some buffer, screen it, make it, not stand out as much. Now, one thing I realize is this portion of the property, the other side, the south, is not that deep. It's hardly, I try to measure, it's roughly 200 feet. So there is not too much room for you to add landscaping, and that's why you're asking for a variance on the buffer requirement on that side. In addition to that, now you have two buildings which are rectilinear. So I don't understand what was the rationale behind adding those, and I thought maybe you knew what happened because I wasn't there when the agreement was written.
I don't, but I know someone who does, because he was involved in the negotiations. And if we could swear Cray in, he told me, I'll take this, so I assume he'll be able to answer.
I know he's ready for many more questions from me.
Yes, absolutely, certainly.
Let me swear you in before you sit down. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're going to give this evening is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And just state your name for the record.
And I'll spell both. It's Cray, C-R-E-I-G-H, Rahenkamp, R-A-H-E-N-K-A-M-P.
We'll get to your credentials later, just enough that you are a professional planner in the state of, licensed in the state of New Jersey.
Yes, and license is current. So to go back to 2017, how and why did this happen? There has been a discussion in this fourth round, third round, sorry. For me, it's the fourth round because we had one before COA, but yes, third round, the rest of the world calls it. How best to deliver affordable housing. One thing that we had learned from the experience of the tax credit projects is when you had affordable housing in a single building, all of a sudden a bunch of community services start happening. Social groups, religious groups, medical groups will show up and do medical screening or babysitting clubs or homework clubs because you've got a population you can serve in a building with a community space enabled to accomplish that. Where we had scattered site units, those kinds of services weren't being delivered. So one of the conversations that Fair Share Housing was having with developers at the time was, we're for scattered sometimes, and in other situations, we're clustering them so that services can be provided in a more coherent way. So the discussion here was, because we had this additional parcel, we could take the 3-bedroom units, which are really the children manufacturing area of this community, put them in buildings where you could have focused services, and in particular, when we get to the site plan, a large playground associated with that wouldn't typically be in the luxury rental apartment building that doesn't really expect to have children as part of its demographics. So as you're programming a building to be able to provide services to and have an amenity targeted to the population, so that was the thinking of the day in 2017, that this was an opportunity to be able to do both. So that there would be scattered, but the 3-bedroom in particular would be organized in a way that services for families with children could be provided.
But what baffles me, it challenges the whole philosophy of inclusionary housing. I mean, if you're going to separate out affordable housing from the market rate units, so I feel we are failing to create a true inclusionary housing. And I know it was part of the settlement agreement, but it just, and it was so disturbing to me that I did reach out to Fair Housing Center. I did have a meeting with them, and this is just for the board's knowledge, that I did reach out to Fair Housing Center. Unfortunately, there's a newer team reviewing it now.
And none of them remember, right.
And the authors or the main people who were involved are no longer involved. Joe also attended the meeting with me because I've been calling him and questioning him because I've been working on affordable housing, advocating affordable housing for the last 20 years. This is the first time I'm seeing a segregation. And the one thought that came to my mind is, how hard is it to move the 48 units into the main development? If there are buildings that are 3-story and 4-story, it may be easily possible to make all the buildings 4 stories and have the affordable units within the main development so that everybody enjoys the same privileges. Whether you live in a market rate unit or the affordable unit, you have the same clubhouse, the same parks, and all the other amenities.
I've got you beat. I'm older. I was in Larchmont in Mount Laurel from the very beginning, so I understand. In the beginning, we did scattered. And for all of the builders' remedies before COA existed, we did scattered. But what happened between then and now are all the tax credit deals. None of those are scattered. They're all 100%. So to say all of affordable housing is scattered isn't true anymore. More than half of the affordable housing being delivered is in 100% environments because of the emphasis that we now place on the tax credit and other publicly supported affordable housing projects. And what we've learned from those is that there are enormous positive services that get delivered in those contexts that the folks in scattered inclusion areas don't get. They don't get the health screenings in the community room, the kinds of services that are happening routinely in tax credits. So in 2017, with folks I admit aren't at fair share anymore, the ideal was, wouldn't it be neat, and I won't defend it completely because the folks that did it aren't here, but wouldn't it be neat if at least the 3-bedroom units we could concentrate so that they could get focused social services that they won't get in a scattered market rate project? So that was the thinking. You may agree with it or not, but that was the thinking.
And I mean, just think about it. Now you have the 3-bedroom units, so you have, like you said, more kids, right?
Yeah.
3-bedroom units typically would generate more traffic. You're at the municipal boundary, right? So to actually go to these 2 buildings, you're really traversing through the neighboring town to enter. So the impacts of the actual 2 buildings are also on the neighboring town, right? If you think about it.
I can't speak for the folks who are representing the town when this was going on.
But it's just
and I will say there is a
thought.
multifamily development next to this. Around the corner on Biondi, the next property over, is a fairly large multifamily development. So it's not as if these are the only multifamily buildings in this entire neighborhood. Across the street is single family, absolutely. And originally that neighborhood was smaller ranches. There are some newer homes in there that are much larger. Not that it changes it, it's a single family neighborhood. But immediately around the corner is a large scale multifamily development.
All right. I will hold off, but.
Do we have any?
Yeah, I just want to go through my memo just to see if there were specific architecture questions. I know there is a variance because I noticed that some of the COA units are in the 4-story building, and the settlement agreement requires that all the COA units are in 3-story buildings.
That's my error. I showed an older sheet tonight
Oh,
for the A
okay.
units, but they're not in the 4-story buildings.
Okay, because the ones we have
The
also.
mixed chart is correct.
All right, because the ones I have show COA units in the 4-story building.
I'll provide those for you tomorrow. The corrected sheet.
Then the other
Can I
thing.
just- excuse me, but the unit mix chart is accurate.
Is accurate.
There was
So
a
to clarify in the mixed chart, the 4-story buildings are the A's and the 3
Correct.
stories are the B's.
Correct.
So there was another comment about the elevations, that the affordable buildings have more cementitious board and lesser of the cementitious sidings and the stone. We would like to see, should the board act favorably, we would like to see similar elevations for the affordable units as well. And maybe we can work, should the board act favorably, we can work on the elevations at the later stage.
Yeah, I mean, they are very consistent with the units on the other side of Whale Creek. In other words, they have the low stone wall going all around. Stone comes up at the entryway. They have the same turn gables. It's just that you're seeing 2 stories on the street side and 3 on the backside. Even the backside, which faces Whale Creek, has stone coming up higher, very consistent with the B buildings, let's say, that are 3 stories.
Yeah, but would you agree to work with us to fine-tune the elevations at a later stage?
To the degree that it's not cost generative. In other words, that's another portion of the two affordable buildings, is that they're not intended to be cost generative for the developer.
But you're proposing, how many? I don't have the math, but you're proposing 400 some market rate units too. I'm sure the developer can absorb it. It's not going to be tremendous, but we want it to be consistent with the market
We're
rate units.
consistent, but I'd be happy to have a conversation with you.
Sure, thank you.
The problem I have with some aspects of the review memos, they ask in terms of, well, we'd like. Well, I don't like or dislike anything. I follow the ordinance. And if you say, I have a preference for this, but you have no architectural standards in the ordinance, which you don't, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. And we think that this is a tremendous layout. I mean, it was called rigid. I don't think it's rigid. I think the architecture is, overall, is very attractive. It's not, this is designed as luxury housing. And the affordable buildings are compatible with the, I'm talking about the 200% affordable, are compatible with everything north of Whale Creek. And north of Whale Creek, you have integrated, except for 2 buildings, affordable and market rate units. So, I mean, could we have a discussion? Yes. I mean, you don't like green and it wants to be blue, but we're not going to redesign and change significantly the materials because someone has a different view of what's beautiful. There's no architectural standards in the ordinance.
Mr. Petrino, I would repeat your same line, beauty lies in the eyes of the beholder, right? So the board, myself, we have been working very closely with other developers to maintain a standard in the town. I don't mean to be disrespectful. I'm just saying that I would like to work with the architect and fine-tune it. The board takes the building elevations very seriously. We have worked with other developers. We haven't made an ask that is huge. It's minor tweaks here and there. It's just because on the other side of the street are single-family homes. That's all I ask.
And Mr. Chairman, what we normally require or request when we make these type of requests is that the applicant work reasonably, and I always put the word reasonably in the resolution with our board professionals if they agree to. If they don't agree to, that's their prerogative, and the board takes that into consideration. But the board has its viewpoint, just as you said the applicant has their viewpoint. And what we a lot of times do when there's no standards, if you're asking relief from the board's asking relief from the applicant on certain things, and we ask to work together. So what we do, you're right, there may not be architectural standards specific, and we're not saying that this is a bad project. I think what the planner is trying to say is, will you reasonably work with the township, not saying that we're looking to make anything cost prohibited, but just reasonably work with the township on making maybe some adjustments, maybe changing the gable a little bit, maybe modifying. I know, I'm not saying that, I understand the engineer takes a lot of pride in his work, and I get that, but sometimes, just different views, and if we would be willing to reasonably work with the township professionals, if the board, acted favorably on the application.
Well, I guess my typical response is, we'll work reasonably, we'll talk, and, I mean, if we have a disagreement, we come back to the board. How do you, I'm sorry. I'm getting comfortable in this chair. Do we come back to the board? I mean, what do we do if we have a disagreement? I mean, I like the plan the way it is. So, and I think Dave does as well.
I do too.
So,
I just looked at it, it's very consistent.
we have a discussion, we talked about tweaks, and something becomes more than a tweak and it becomes a very expensive item. What do we do in that situation if we have that language?
Well, that language is a condition of approval, so if it can't be worked out one way or the other, usually, and I would say, at least my experience here and in other towns, more than 9 times out of 10, it works out. But in those few instances it doesn't work out, I have seen where I have to come back to the board just to address that one issue, saying, we said we'd reasonably work, weren't able to reasonably work out the architectural, if that particular part is the architectural facade for the affordable units, then, we're asking for, relief from that because we believe what we provided is sufficient, and we haven't been able to work something out with and it's usually a quick presentation before the board, but that's, if we went down the road.
If I have to come back to the board to change a condition, it's a renotice. Do you have a technical review committee that can, before I have to come back to the board?
That's a fair point. Dina, do we have I know we have a minor subcommittee, a minor site plan committee, but do we have a technical review committee or something that we can maybe word the condition on, if it's acted favorably, the condition where if it can't be, almost like a mediation type of situation where if it can't be, rather than having to come back for the board with full notice?
To be honest, what generally happens is the applicant comes and meets with me. I usually involve Nicole too when it comes to elevations. Although I review them more, I have her sit in the room and we just discuss, we pick the materials. If we don't like something, I don't think that's the case. I'm just saying maybe there would be some minor tweaks, that's all. Maybe, adding more cementatious sidings instead of cementatious boards, something as simple as that. So, but there is no technical review committee meeting by ordinance. We have a pre-application meeting, but that's different because now this is already a filed application. But we often meet the applicant's team to go over site plan issues or architectural issues or any design-related issues prior to the applicant taking a vote or stuff like that.
Or the alternatives again, if it's approved, during resolution compliance. You go through and you look at the conditions and if you have to make a minor adjustment, you make it. But I don't like to see it as a condition of an approval because then I have to come back to the board if there's a disagreement.
Well, if it's part of resolution compliance, that is a condition though, isn't it? Like, how would you word it then?
No, you would just, that the applicant during resolution compliance will discuss, architectural, potential minor architectural modifications. And then you work it out in resolution compliance. If you can't, then you have to come back to the board.
No,
Make it a formal condition.
That's essentially what we do when we do make it a formal condition, but I'm happy to work on language that's acceptable.
But you understand.
I do understand what you're saying. Yeah.
Joe.
Oh, that's true, actually. This is preliminary, so we could address it before final anyways.
Out between final.
I'm just trying to hear from my client. That's who's out of the country, and I want to see if he's sending me any.
You see what they're saying we could do between preliminary and final.
I'm not understanding his response. Let me see. I don't see a new response. Okay.
Well, I think actually it's a fair point because we don't even have to get to the point of compliance review because at this point it's only preliminary. So if we can't agree, you're coming back for final approval and it gets addressed at that point.
Well, I think that works if the resolution is clean and we just, it's something that is done at final.
I think we could do that.
Okay. What
There was one more comment about whether the garages will be available to the COA units, but I think you answered that question by saying that the COA units will be only within the 3-story buildings, correct? Yep. So I have no further questions.
Well, I have nothing further.
I don't have any questions for the applicant's architect.
Chairman Marucci, we do have Mr. Khalil Kalani in the audience who has co-authored the report as well. I just wanted to.
I'm sorry, repeat that. I missed the first part of that.
So, Tim Kalani is actually with my office. He's one of the authors of our report. He's a planner and landscape architect, so Bino's just offering him the opportunity to comment as well.
Okay, certainly. Nothing? Okay. Okay, then I'll open it up to the board members. Any questions, comments for this witness?
I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
Comments, but I'll try to put them in the form of a question. I'd like to go back to A1, if we could. And,
Is that the site plan?
the site plan layout?
The colored land plan.
I think that's the only exhibit we've marked so far, right?
Yeah, I think all the others were submitted. The architecturals were submitted on November 18th.
So A.
This takes a minute to load. It's a big file.
Still processing.
A little blurry, but we'll make do.
Yep.
There you go.
Yeah, I looked at this plan, then I looked at the original settlement agreement plan. Were you involved with that, Mr. Minow?
Can I just stop? I hate to, I apologize, Mayor, for interrupting you. The plan attached to the review memo is not attached to the settlement agreement. I've reviewed it with Mr. Roselli. It's an attachment to the condominium agreement. It's not an attachment.
But it's a different layout
What?
that we looked at. I just want to know what happened between this layout and that layout. That looks like, I won't use the term rigid, but I'll certainly call it a lack of creativity. To me, it looks like an aerial view of a military base complete with parade grounds. What happened to a creative plan that was shown with circular roads and the buildings separated by more than the parking dominates that plan. I mean, that looks like a piece of graph paper was drawn, and let's put a street north and south, east and west. And what do these long roads and streets turn into in town? Drag strips. And all we do, we get people coming to council meetings and tell us someone is going to get killed at every one of those intersections. So why wasn't there any creativity put into separating some of these homes, putting some more green space between them? That's just my opinion, and you're entitled, you're the architect, but I want to know what happened.
Let me just say, the attachment to the settlement agreement showed townhouses.
It shows buildings.
Excuse me. It showed townhouses as well as apartments, and Bridgepoint objected to the townhouses because they said they were too similar to their units. So that plan got changed partially at the request of the condominium association. And all it really was a plan that was intended to show where the 50 parking lot, car parking lot would be located. And it just happened to be on a plan that had buildings on it. But that was not something that was part of the settlement discussions with the town, as far as I know. Although, again, I'll punt a little bit. I wasn't part of the settlement discussions totally. And if you notice that plan, it highlights just the parking lot. And it talks about where it's going to be and how far from this and so on. So I'll shut up now and let Mr.
My comment would be it's not a good quality of life plan for people living there. And I think that's what our concerns are.
Yeah, no,
We want people who move to Old Bridge to have a high quality of life. We want them to be safe.
Yeah. I mean, I beg to differ. Just And
That's why we're here.
Yeah, there is some real rationale in this. Concerning the streets and your comment on drag strips, these streets, these main streets that run through the project have parallel parking along those streets, in particular for visitors. Parallel parking is one of the biggest cues that traffic engineers use to give people to slow down. And they're not open roadways. There's people parking and moving. There's intersections, frequent intersections. So we don't think the drag strip comment really applies. The parking is really centrally located in the middle. It's not dominated by parking. In fact, the other plan visually was much more dominated by parking. That the plan that's attached to the planner's memo has frequent large parking lots coming out of the main street. This really doesn't have that. We have much smaller frontages for major parking lots. Every other parking situation is located behind buildings so that the main streets are basically beautifully landscaped with good architecture, parallel parking, and it's going to read like a really well-designed traditional neighborhood community. There's towns that have taken this on, like Robbinsville designed a whole town center around a principle like this. And it's gorgeous. It's really a gorgeous place as you drive through because they've followed through with that planning concept. And it may look regimented to you, and it is geometrical. It is, it's rectilinear in that sense, but there's a rationale to that. And, it's a more old town kind of version of a land plan than suburban rolling streets and curved streets.
And Mr. Chairman, if I may just add, Mayor, to follow up on your point, Mr. Petrino is correct that the concept plan that was, I believe you're referring to, was not part of the settlement. It was attached to a separate settlement agreement between Alfieri and the adjacent. However, it was presented to the council, to the mayor and council, as part of the settlement, or at least a proposed part of the settlement back in September of 2016. There was a presentation made to the council and was, I believe, September 26, 2016. And that concept plan, Mr. Petrino, was presented. It was in the spreadsheet, the PowerPoint presentation. It was a presentation of all the affordable housing that was going to be included in the settlement agreement. And this is for the board's education as well. And at that point, the concept plan that I think we're talking about that was attached to the other settlement was presented, and it was outlined and shows the residential components. It shows the other, even identifying in a block, the other below creek developments, and as well as the commercial component. And it was included in that PowerPoint presentation to the council. So
that PowerPoint presentation showed the parking lot?
No, it actually shows.
It's a different plan.
Yeah, it's a similar plan. This is, I don't know if exactly, because it's a cutout, so I don't know if it's exactly what date, but it shows that design to reflect to what the mayor is referring to. So it may not be exactly that same plan or not. I just know it has that same design. I think that's where some of the confusion may be, because it isn't, you're right, Mr. Petrino, it wasn't part of the settlement agreement as attachment, and it was there was a similar plan, if not the same plan, that was attached to the other settlement agreement between the property owners. But I think that's where the confusion might be coming, at least between the applicant and the board here is, or at least members of the board, is that that a version of that plan was presented, and that's what was in the mind, I believe, of what the mayor is referring to, and the council was.
Yeah, and I think at that time, there was shown commercial, and that's when it was taken out. I think there was commercial shown on by Bridgepoint, and that we agreed to take that out of there, that we wouldn't want the commercial against that. But this is what it looked like when we first saw it.
There was commercial, again, this site has a long history.
Absolutely.
There was commercial, a retail lot where the parking lot is. And, I mean, we've had approvals where we've had hotels approved.
I got 2 people willing to build them.
Not on this site. Not on this
Oh,
site.
yes, sir. Okay, I don't want to beat a dead horse. I think it's a step backwards from what we had seen originally. That'll be my opinion. And we can, the second question I have and the comment would be the affordable buildings on Biondi. I think when we look at those 2-story and a roof line, they tower over anything that's over there. tower over anything that's over there. And I believe changed the whole complexion of the Biondi neighborhood. So I think you need to look at that, and we need to come up with some type of, have a discussion at least. And the third issue I have, and Mr. Mino, you made the comment that the clubhouse is going to be the heart of this community. And your colleague, to my left, right to your right, says it's really not the heart, but really the affordable units go on their own. And I have a hard time getting over that, being part of this process from the beginning, to think that people, as part of this community, would have to drive more than 2 miles to get to the heart of the community, have to leave Old Bridge, go through Aberdeen, go over the Parkway, back over the Parkway, to get to the heart of the community that you said, to me makes absolutely no sense. And I'll disagree with this professional that said this is better for the affordable people to be separated. No, these 2 affordable units, these buildings, need to go over to the north of Whale Creek. And if you want to put some market rate units on Biondi, that's people looking for a totally separate looking way of life, but do not separate. I think it goes when I'm sorry for being a little upset, but mixed use, inclusionary. This is an exclusionary development.
What if it was 100% affordable?
The whole entire project?
No, you have projects, buildings all over the place that are 100% affordable. I mean, Craig's explanation is right on point because of the tax credits. You have this.
But why couldn't they build? Why couldn't these buildings be built to the north of Whale Creek with their tax exemption, 100% affordable?
Were you on council or mayor when the settlement agreement was?
Yes,
signed?
I was.
Okay, you agreed that these 2 buildings would be on the south side of Whale Creek. You agreed.
Did I agree?
You agreed.
I sat in a room with a master and we hammered out agreement. And in fact, I'll go back to say that these buildings were going to be connected by a man-made structure at one time. That Biondi was going to come across Whales Creek.
I don't know how you could do that.
That's how
under the
far back
DEP
this goes.
regulation.
Maybe it was Metro Park South that had some kind of crossing over that Whales Creek. But I don't think it's fair to anyone to separate these buildings 100% affordable from the heart of the community.
I understand your comment. I also understand that the township agreed to something very different. It's in the agreement. Now Alfieri is not prepared to amend that part of the agreement. Actually, not prepared to amend any part of the agreement. And we're going to live with it. We're going to live within the 4 corners of that agreement. We're going to continue to try to market the non-residential component. We made a deal through the end of the 3rd round, which ends in July. We've spent $6 million on this site trying to develop it. And, we're not going to throw everything away. It took us 18 months to get through CAFRA. And
Boo-hoo.
What?
Boo-hoo.
Well,
You're a developer.
by the way, the town had those plans. If there was a problem, they went to the clerk, the construction official.
Look, I'm not here to debate the
Well, I'm not
process.
here to debate,
We didn't
but I
put this
can't do
process
what
in
you
place.
asked. We can't do what you asked.
It's not our problem. We had to go to CAFRA. Don't blame this board that you had to go to CAFRA.
I'm not a question of blame. You
just use it as an excuse.
No, you had months, years to look at these plans and say you didn't like them. The construction official, the township engineer, the borough clerk, everything we submitted
I disagree.
to CAFRA.
I disagree.
Well,
So we'll
you
agree to
can't
disagree.
because it's objectively true. I can give you the transmittals. We sent a book of almost 800 pages of material to the town, so they knew everything we were doing. It was very transparent. I love that word. That's a word that everybody uses now, right? And robust. I love robust. But so here we are. I filed this application 11 months, 1 day ago. 11 months, 1 day ago. And now, and I appreciate that you don't write the staff reviews, so I understand that. But I'm getting comments now, I should have been through this process. I didn't get my first review memo for 138 days after I submitted my revised plan. 138 days. Both times when I should have been deemed complete and it's supposed to only take 45 days, each time that was violated. Each time it didn't happen within the time frame of the municipal land use law. The COA regs are explicit. These applications for affordable housing to help you meet your affordable housing obligation.
We are well on track to
entitled-
meet our obligation.
Are entitled to be expedited, including special meetings. And nothing like that happened. So and by the way, we're not extending beyond tonight. We're not extending beyond tonight. So I'm prepared. I stayed in Edison one night till 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm happy to do it again. I have 4 witnesses that have been here twice, and they're here, and they can testify. And I have a phasing issue that's very critical to this project because there is absolutely no way that the non-residential component that the town and Alfieri signed up to pursue can be built. So I need a decision tonight. I've waited. I asked for special meetings. You didn't hold a meeting in November at all. You had a meeting on, I don't know, when was it? The 5th of December. I didn't know about it. I saw it on the website. I said, hey, we'll come on the 5th. No, that's no good. Then I get a meeting on the 8th. I said, I want to be first. I'm not first. In fact, I might not even been heard tonight if the other applicant didn't go off. So I'm sorry. I know you think I'm being unreasonable. I'm being argumentative. I'm being litigious. I'm not any of those things. What I am is frustrated. I'm frustrated that it's been 11 months and 1 day since I filed an application. I finally get here, and then I hear the mayor of the township, who I think is a great mayor, by the way, so I'm not disparaging you, but how do I deal with that comment 11 months and 1 day after the application was filed? I can't. So there's no extension.
When was the application deemed complete?
Yeah, and then it was deemed, it was deemed complete 18 days after it was deemed complete as a matter of law. Then it was submitted, and again it wasn't deemed incomplete in 45 days, and again it was deemed complete as a matter of law. It's been complete since August 2nd, September 2nd, October 2nd. I don't get a meeting until October 27th. Then an issue, and Mr. Sardillo and I went back and forth on this issue. He didn't like my comment. There's an issue manufactured. I was deemed approved automatically on August 1. No condition about, had no issue about landscaping. But no, we took a vote, 6 people voted it down. And then all my people sat here for that evening, could have testified, could have gotten through the application that night, or if not, come back at a special meeting in November, which was never granted. Alternative dates were suggested, never granted. Could have come back on August 5th. Here I am on August 8th, and I want to vote.
Mr. Chairman, if I may respond, this board and most of the people on it this evening was here when the waiver was requested. No one from the applicant showed up for that waiver hearing. At that waiver hearing, it was requested for a landscape plan to be waived as part of the submissions. This board considered it and decided, you know what, this is an important application. We'll conditionally grant that waiver subject to the landscape plan being submitted prior to the hearing. That was not done at the October 27th hearing. There was no landscape plan submitted before that. Now, there's a lot of rhetoric being stated right now about how this has been filed since 11 months ago. But there was no landscape plan 11 months ago, and there was no landscape plan knowing there was still no landscape plan even as of October. And so there was no complete application before this board to act upon. Landscape plan, as any land any land use attorney, any land use member of a board knows is extremely important in these type of large developments. It wasn't submitted. So to say that the board just sat on this when the applicant didn't even provide a landscape plan, which is a very common, very vital part of any land use application, is just absolute nonsense. The applicant did request a special meeting after they asked for an amendment to that waiver, the conditional waiver that was granted. The board voted against it on October. It wanted to see the landscape plan. It was finally submitted weeks after. The applicant asked for a special meeting at that point, and the board looked for it. There was numerous
I didn't get a quorum that night. There were numerous emails sent out to the board. Those 2 dates were floated. We were not able, and we were specifically looking for November because at that time, Mr. Petrino had said that the application expires on December 1st. We will not grant an extension. That is the only reason we were focusing on November dates. Because of Municipal League and Thanksgiving, these were the only two dates where I could physically have a meeting because the court meets on Wednesdays, the council meets on Tuesdays. So I'm left with typically Mondays and Thursdays, but Thursdays we have zoning board as well. These were the 2 dates that this courtroom was available. I reached out, there was no quorum, and that's why we couldn't have a special meeting.
And then as for the special meeting on December 5th, as this board knows, that was scheduled since late August, early September by another applicant. That applicant had scheduled it. It was something that was scheduled before this board, and it was going forward. So this application then goes to the next available date, which was today, December 8th. We've started the application, moving forward with it. This board will hear as much as it can this evening. If the applicant does not want to carry it, if we don't finish, because it's already now 10:30, the applicant doesn't want to carry it, then it will force this board to make a vote on an incomplete application. That's up to the applicant if they want to do that or not.
It's not an incomplete application.
You provided all the testimony?
It's an incomplete hearing because you don't provide hearings. Now, by the way,
obviously,
on December 5th, you heard 2 non-residential developments, warehouses.
Yes.
You're supposed to give expedited treatment to inclusionary developments. I didn't get 1 ounce of expedited treatment in this application, not 1 ounce.
You absolutely
The revised plans came in on June 17th. The revised plans didn't have landscaping, and I got a letter that said you're deemed complete. Now you say I'm supposed to think back to March 17th or March 24th and disregard back that letter didn't say a word about landscaping. So when I did my notice for the hearing, I continued to say, and by the way, we're not asking not to do a landscape plan. We asked that it be deferred to final approval, which I've done in many jurisdictions, who take their obligation with regard to affordable housing they take it and they accept it and they agree to do what they said they do in settlement agreements. And they agree to do what the law is with regard to affordable housing. And that is special meetings and expedited review. 11 months, 1 day is in no way expedited review. We can debate this all. I love debating it with you. You're a great debater. But objectively, 11 months and 1 year is not any form of expeditious review. So do what you have to do, decide what you want to decide, but we're not. I have 4 experts. They were here in October. They could have testified. They weren't permitted. They're here tonight. You're going to say, oh, well, it's 10:30. We got to go. Again, I stayed in Edison till 4 in the morning one night. I'm happy to say.
This is not Edison. And, you know, I love a lot of things. I mean, you come up with a lot of the numbers. Now it's a year and 11 months? I thought it was 11 months. You said 11 months in a year.
11 months in 1 day.
Well, you just said 11 months in 1 year. But
Well,
nevertheless.
I guess you've never misspoke, so okay.
Well, when we're talking about time period and how you're accusing the board for not moving, that's very important, whether it's 11 months in a year or 11 months in a day. That's a very big difference.
I said 11 months in 1 day, at least 4 or 5 times.
And earlier, just this conversation, you advised that Alfieri is not going to move for one word or amend one word from the settlement agreement, yet we're here with variance applications and requests for amendments and changes to it. So
No, I'm not. No, I'm not.
there's no variance requested in
The
this?
settlement agreement provides for relief if
Right,
the.
relief. You're
Right.
asking for relief from this board.
Yeah, and by the way,
But
I
you
can-
won't give any
I
relief.
can go to the court tomorrow and get that relief. Because it's in the settlement agreement. That's the place where, that has
I believe it
jurisdiction
says
over it.
that determined by the township planning board at the time of the review.
No, you're not reading the settlement agreement.
This is exactly the settlement agreement.
No, no.
Yes, yes.
Here.
It's right here,
Let's look-
settlement agreement.
Yeah, but you're not reading 10.1. And maybe that's the problem here, because nobody's ever read 10.1.
I'm reading 7, which it talks about the Alfieri
Oh, yeah, okay. well,
application.
All right, let's read the next section. It talks about Alfieri and Fernetti, they were conditioned by ordinance on non-residential development and have been impeded from being developed because of the non-residential component. If that occurs, any interested party, and we're an interested party, may apply to the court and on motion, request a hearing before the court regarding these issues, including but not limited to, a request for removal of the non-residential phasing requirement at the Alfieri and Fernetti sites. That's on page 21 of the settlement agreement. I'm not asking for removal. I'm not asking for removal. I'm just asking for a phasing modification to be relieved of that so I can build the residential. I'm perfectly, I mean, we've spent a lot of time and effort on the non-residential portion. It's approved by CAFRA. We have billboards up all over the place trying to attract people to the site. And we're not running away from that, but it's holding up the residential. And that's what the settlement agreement is primarily about, affordable housing. And that's what Fair Share, in fact, Fair Share sent a letter in April to the court, I think it was to the court or to Mr. Roselli, that said, hey, there's no market. So somebody should make a motion to eliminate the non-residential. I'm not making a motion to eliminate the non-residential. I'm asking that the phasing be changed. I'll keep trying, and if we get, I mean, we're soliciting build-to-suit proposals. If we get them, we'll talk to them. We have, in Metro Park, we have 1 million square feet of office, and 10 miles south of here, we have 500,000 square feet of office. We're office developers. People know that we're office developers. They come to us for office development. So we will continue to do what we agreed to do in the settlement agreement for round 3, and that is to provide non-residential development on Lot B, but it can't impede the residential. And that provision was added to this settlement agreement at the request of, I'm assuming, and again, I wasn't part of I assume that was added by Fair Share Housing, and Fair Share Housing told Mr. Roselli, who's a great township attorney, by the way, so don't tell him I was disparaging him, was told that somebody should make a motion because the office development is impeding not the residential development. So,
But you keep saying that, but I don't see how any decision of this board, or even your alleged delays, which I still don't agree with, has impeded the affordable
because I'm asking
housing.
you to waive that, that's part of my
We
application.
haven't ruled on the application. You haven't even presented on that part of it
Because
yet.
you haven't given me time. Look, no more debate. We're not extending. I don't know how to make it any clearer. We've spent enough time and effort. We've submitted market studies from Jeff Otto. Your staff agreed there's no office market.
We're not arguing that. You haven't even
Okay.
presented that. The board hadn't made a decision on that.
Well, if you're not arguing, then grant the phasing.
We're waiting to continue on the application.
You want to continue? Then let's swear in Craig Ronkamp.
I leave that to the chairman and the board as because of the timing. Now, if you want to, we'll take that first. Do we want to continue with the application this evening, or is it past 10:30? I leave that up to the board.
Do I get a general consensus from the board for 11?
Let's move on then.
Well, I think we can get, well, I don't know.
We
I
do,
think-
technically, we do have to open up to the public questioning of, because we haven't done that yet, public questioning of the architect.
Yeah, I'm lost, like I'm now.
Yeah, no,
like, I
we're
don't even know where we
public
are.
questioning of the witness.
Of Mr. Minow.
Yes.
Okay, do we have any public questions for Mr. Minow?
Sorry, excuse me.
My goodness. Hello.
Again, Dave, is
David
your phone,
Merwin.
your phone's off?
Yeah, that's not my phone. It's the ambulance thing. I keep trying to shut it off, but I don't know how to shut it. I think I finally got it. Mayor, and you want to talk about no good deed goes unpunished, huh?
All right. Remember, this is questions of this witness, though. Regular comments could be at the end.
You know, this is 2022, and I can't believe that we're segregating poor people. I am shocked that this applicant would have the audacity to do this. But here we are. There's a real simple remedy to this. Move the two buildings into the main complex. Based upon his testimony, that's where the medical people want to come. That's, well, all those amenities that you brag about is right there. The people can come right to their town little center there, their recreation building, and do all their little medical checking and everything else, couldn't they? Wouldn't that confirm, like get to the COA, the whole idea of COA? Wouldn't that? It was your testimony there, Greg, right? That's what they should do.
May I answer? It was actually Mr. Minow's time, but.
Yeah, I leave that to your attorney.
Yeah.
I leave it to whether.
It was Mr. Minow's time. I didn't know if I was allowed to jump in again.
No, yeah, you.
Okay, for the record, Craig Rankamp, the planner. The settlement agreement was based on a whole series of factors, one of which was the dedication of over 4 acres to the Bridgepoint Condominium Association and preserving a significant land area for non-residential. So the amount of land available for the residential was being squeezed from both sides. The land south of Whale Creek was available for residential. Plans, there were lots of them at the time, had various configures of residential north and south of the creek. It was clear those two buildings were going to be separate from the stuff north of the creek. And the input from Fair Share, based on their experience with their project in Mount Laurel, which is 100% affordable, and the tax credit experience, was that this was an opportunity to do affordable housing with a playground, with a fantastic open space behind them with Whale Creek. And that was their idea, and we liked it. But when you say, can it go back north, that has to do with how much land is available for the residential, squeezing both ends from non-residential and the lands we've got to give to Bridgepoint. And we only have that middle piece available.
But it was your testimony that the reason you put them all together was that all these good public things like health care and everything else
Yes, it's true.
would go there. So why wouldn't we put that up in the other complex where we utilize all these amenities that you've been bragging about?
As I said, both north and south of the creek are going to be used residentially because of the amount of land being used for non-residential and for the dedication to Bridgepoint. It was clear that there's going to be residential both north and south of Whale Creek, and the discussion with Fair Share is they preferred to get the 3-bedroom units in a place that had a community of services, playground, and open space.
Now, if
I didn't
may-
do it. I was part of it, but I didn't. This was not my idea.
Dave, 1 second, if I may, was Fair Share aware that there was not easy access back to the regular part of the community, and they had to drive through another town 2 miles out of their way to get to the amenities?
As involved as they were in this community in developing your compliance plan, I have to figure that they understood. Do I specifically know they had that knowledge? I can't say that I know that.
Yeah, because I don't see how they would side with that if they understood that the easy access was not there.
Then we have the buildings with all the 3-family or the 3 bedrooms and the 2 bedrooms over here because they got a playground. Not that with all those kids, we would want to put them over where the recreation building is, where the pool is. No, we're going to make them not only go out of town, they got to go out of the county in order to utilize all the amenities.
That's a good point,
in this
too.
section.
Good point.
They can't even walk there. You know why they can't walk there? Because I'm going to tell you, because I saved 3 kids in that project. All right? They were sinking in the mud. They were up to here when I went out and got them. All right? Because it's the clay pits. I don't care what the EPA or the DEP says. It's the clay pits.
And what's going to stop the children
again,
moving into these buildings doing the same thing?
It's as easy as moving those 2 buildings. This is plain out segregation based upon their income. There's no other reason. It's a simple fix. Move those 2 buildings over there, make these ones affordable, or make them mixed. But this is ridiculous in 2022 that we even have to talk about this.
If I can just make, I don't know if I'm going to get in trouble, but if you were to abandon the Beyond Street property and build those residential where the commercial space is that you say you cannot build, square foot for square foot, reduce the amount of square foot that you are required to build by the square foot of these 2 affordable units and move them onto the non-residential property on the north side of the creek with access to all the amenities. 2 buildings, move to where the commercial, non-residential is. Reducing the amount of commercial space you now have to build. Saving money for you not having to develop Beyond Street. Leaving Beyond Street the way it is. Feasible? Do we have to go before a judge? Something we can work out? Is it to the board? Does that make sense? I know our professionals are probably going to kill me tomorrow. But it just seems like a compromise to have all the residential at one location and reduce the non-residential space that you say you can't build. Uncle.
I'm not the decision maker. And at this point, I couldn't agree to that. That's not the way it's set up in the settlement agreement. And, this doesn't work for them.
It's not on.
Oh, how'd you get it to turn on?
Just press the button.
No, we've been doing that.
You have to hold
Thank
it.
you.
You have to hold it
So,
for a couple seconds.
I appreciate your comment, but I think my hands and my client's hands are tied.
Your hands or yours and both your clients? Yeah, no, I understand, but, I mean, would your client be willing to address the mayor's comment and that proposal?
I can't speak for him. I know that he's committed to the plan he's submitted, and whether the mayor likes that or I like it or any, not my decision. I think we're committed to what we agreed to, what both parties, well, not both parties, including Fair Share agreed to. If between preliminary approval and final, you know, there's a discussion, maybe, but I'm not here to talk about what could happen in the future.
Yeah,
I'm here
I
to talk about what is before the board.
I don't want to speak for the mayor, but I don't think it's a like-dislike thing. I think it's more what's right. I think that's the standpoint we're coming from, is what's right.
Is it your opinion that Fair Share Housing Center, the advocate that brought us Mount Laurel in 1972 when I was in law school and they were in the building, they were in the office above me, that they think that what we're doing is segregating and is bad for affordable housing residents?
Well, it's not my position to voice my opinion on that, but what I would like to know is, in the current iteration, does Fair Share understand the fact that, let's not use the word segregated, but these units are put in such a way, they're located in such a way that these residents would have to leave the town, as Dave said, leave the county, and go 2 miles to get back to the amenities that everybody else has right at their fingertips. And Dave brought up a very good point about rescuing children out of the mud. What's going to stop kids from,
Are we talking about Whale
in those
Creek?
units?
Is that-
Yes, in those units from trying to cross over that creek as well, to get to the pool, to get to the amenities. I mean, you're looking at
there
safety
are-
of residents as well.
There are amenities in the buildings. There are 2 community rooms? or
Yep,
one?
yep, one in each building.
One in each building, large community rooms.
Where's the pool?
Where's the pool?
Kids love pools.
Some do, most do. And we have a very large and detailed park. We did all that because we were following the agreement. If 11 months ago, somebody had raised something like this, maybe it would be something we could discuss. I can't discuss it tonight. We are here, we're committed to our plan. We think it's a good plan. It conforms to the settlement agreement. It's a plan that Fair Share spent, well, you were talking about, when was that presentation? You said September?
September 2016.
All right. So 7 months later, the settlement agreement gets signed. So Fair Share, and I don't know this for a fact, right? I wasn't the attorney handling the negotiation. But Fair Share, as Cray mentions, and he was part of the discussion with the attorney who represented Alfieri at that time on this settlement agreement. I mean, everybody, there were discussions after discussions after discussions, hearings, at least one hearing, I think 2, with the judge over the terms of the settlement agreement. And that language on paragraph 10 of the settlement agreement came in during those discussions. So again, tonight is a hearing on the application as we presented it, and that's it.
I agree, and that is correct. The board is hearing and making a decision on the application, how the applicant wants to present it. I think, Mr. Petrino, on behalf of the board, what we're saying is, well, at least what I'm hearing is that, they'd like to see some modifications to it as being presented, but ultimately, if the applicant doesn't agree to those, the board makes a decision based on what's being presented.
Right.
I'd just like to make one note, because it was brought up between you and the chairman in your discussions about Fair Share. I wasn't involved way back then. I've only been involved in the township for the past 2 years, so I'm really new here. But when our conversation, Vina mentioned that we did have a conversation with Fair Share about this, application in general and the terms of it. And at least the new people at Fair Share who we spoke to were not aware of the fact that these 2 buildings were so isolated, and they didn't seem to be. They wouldn't make any decision on it. They didn't, render any official ruling, or not that we were looking for that, but we just wanted to make sure to see if we were off base on our, concerns about it, and they did raise concerns about it during that phone call. That's all I'm going to say.
It's unfortunate that you'd have that call without us on the line, but that's your decision.
Well, it was. We weren't just talking about this one, but this is one of them that was brought up.
But all I can tell you is Adam Gordon's still there. Bassam is gone. He's the one that wrote the letter that said the non-residential should be struck. I think it's Josh Bowers now, and I don't think he's been involved in this at all, or very little. There's a fellow by the name of Will who's not a lawyer. I think he's a law clerk.
Frank, none of them were here then. These are all.
It's all new people.
These are all new people. So the only.
And Betsy, the master's retired.
Yeah.
So,
No, and I recognize that. That's what I'm saying. I recognize
I don't know if
everyone's
Mark
new
Remsen,
except for
if
your
Mark Remsen
planner.
still works for you. Mark Remsen and I were the only 2 left.
Joe, can I chime in?
Absolutely.
So when we had the meeting with Fair Housing Center, yes, you're right. Everybody's new. It was Mr. Will Fairhurst. Yes, he's, I think, handling Old Bridge now. We did meet with Josh Bowers. He was in the meeting as well. And this was my understanding. They were fairly shocked that these affordable units were segregated. But the one thing they did say is, I don't know if, for us, the most important thing is that the affordable gets built. And how you work it out with the developer is completely the way the two, like the township and the developer works. What I am trying to understand is that it's not that the developer is agreeing to every single item on the settlement agreement, right? Because you're asking for a variance and a deviation on the Parkway ramp, correct?
No, no. The settlement agreement is very clear. It says if that is approved by the Parkway, and the understanding is right now that they're not going to approve it. So if they don't approve it, we don't have to build it.
I think the township agreed to the density, and the mayor knows this better because I wasn't involved, but Mayor, please feel free to chime in.
Off-site
The
improvements
off-site improvements were critical.
They were a
to-
key in this settlement.
to-
And that's a whole nother meeting, just the off-site improvements that the town required from this application.
Right.
And now you're telling me they might not get done either?
Yeah, they're all going to get done.
that's not what you said.
But no, I didn't. I was talking about one issue. She's talking about one issue, the bridge.
The bridge.
Right.
One of the key
And
elements of
right,
the
and
settlement.
yes, yes. And the analysis now and then, by the way, I got this approved in 2007 by DOT, or not DOT, NJTA, for hotels, retail, single-family residential, 100 million square feet of office with a 2-lane bridge. That's what was approved.
That just shows you how people
No,
are.
it doesn't. It shows you that you have to listen to the
So, yeah, you
traffic
can't get over that
consultants.
bridge today with 2 lanes. To come back to this board and say it doesn't need 3,
That's
a third
because of
lane.
what happens on either side of
That's not
it.
going to happen tonight, the off-site improvement discussion. So we need to make a decision whether we continue this application or you want to vote now.
Yeah, we are still technically under the public portion.
And I didn't finish my comment. What I was trying to say is that the applicant is seeking for deviation from the settlement agreement. May it be the non-residential component, may it be the off-site improvement. The township is saying that, I know, Mr. Petrino, you said that the Old Ridge Township is not giving the due respect for the inclusionary housing, and I personally take offense to that because Mr. Roselli, myself, we have been working really hard to create affordable housing, not just what was approved by the housing plan, but we have created numerous other inclusionary housing projects through redevelopment planning, and we have been building affordable units. We have built more affordable units than what is covered by our housing plan. So that's not true. In fact, we were one of the few towns who went and had a detailed midpoint review on what has been developed. So all we are trying to say is you are asking for a deviation from the ordinance, from the settlement agreement. We are very passionate about affordable housing. We do care about it. We want these affordable units to be included as the main development. We are ready to work with you. Would you work with us? That's the question.
Ready to work for 11 months.
Mr. Petrino, I have heard these dates and numbers for a long time now. I don't want to argue your application. We waited till June
Look at the chronology. Look at the chronology. You haven't given this application what, as a matter of law, it should have been given. And
Mr. Petrino, the application was submitted in January. I did not get submission till June. Why don't you focus on that?
No, you didn't. You've got an incomplete determination, and then revised plans were submitted on June 17th.
That is after I made numerous phone calls to your office. You promised me they will be submitted. They were sent on June 17th. Let me finish. But the landscape plan was always pending from March.
Right. That's exactly right. But you had 44 pages of documents that you couldn't review because you were waiting for a landscape plan. That's what you're saying? Come on, let's be real. So let me just tell you what the settlement agreement says. Subject to the following roadway improvements, as may be modified by outside agency approvals. As may be modified by outside.
That was not in the discussions we had when that went into a separate room with a master, and they were made after that.
You signed it. You signed it.
Made sure our attorney reviewed that, and there was no way out of those off-site improvements, and I was lied to.
Well, I don't know if you're lied to, but if you're Owen Henry Mayor, you signed it on March 30th, 2017, and Mr. Roselli does not lie, so. I don't
Mr.
think that's-
Petrito, can I ask you, what's the sentence before that sentence in the settlement agreement?
Right. Parties acknowledge and agree that the timing and phasing for construction shall be determined by the board. Subject to the foregoing, the following roadway improvements, as may be modified by outside agency approvals, should be constructed over the course of the Alfieri development. Then it represents 5 items.
And you said
4 of those are no problem.
shall be determined by the board, correct?
What?
You said shall be determined by the board, correct?
Subject to outside agency approvals. You can't agree that the bridge, you can't mandate that the bridge be 3 lanes. You don't have that jurisdiction.
It says,
You're not reading this correctly.
can you read it again then, please?
Yeah, I'll read it again. Subject to the foregoing,
What is the foregoing?
your discretion. But subject to the foregoing, the following roadway improvements, as may be modified by outside agency approvals, meaning New Jersey Turnpike Authority and Middlesex County. And they have both determined preliminarily, based upon the improvements on either side, the 2 signals that are being installed. I gather you're the traffic consultant.
I am, yes.
Yeah, okay. Based upon the, nice to meet you.
It's very nice to meet you as well.
Based upon the signals on either end and the improvements on either end, that 2 lanes works. And that's exactly what Carl Penke determined and will testify to.
I'm not asking you that. I'm asking you, does it say that the roadway improvement shall be determined by the Township Planning Board?
Then it says, yeah, but you want to.
Does it say that or no?
Yes, does it say
Okay,
what I say
thank
after
you.
that?
That's all I'm asking you.
I don't care, I'm asking you. Does it say what I said afterwards?
It does, but it also says subject to foregoing. I'm not an attorney.
All right,
The way I
well,
read it
then
is,
I can tell you what it means, and so can Joe.
Yeah, it means it's subject to the determination by the planning board, subject to the foregoing. The foregoing is determination by the planning board. So
The following may be modified,
Right.
shall be constructed.
Right.
You want, if you
Subject
want
to
to
the
litigate
foregoing.
that, we'll litigate that language.
Okay, and this isn't the place to do that. This is not a court of law.
Well, I know, but you're forcing me there because you've taken 11 months and 1 day to get me 1 witness. And now, I'm sorry, I can't, I got my glass. He wants to leave because it's more than 11:01. So, I want to vote, yes, Joe.
Well, yeah,
Yes.
well, it's the board, the entire board concurred. It's not just, don't place it just on Mr. Petty.
Well, no, I'm just,
Yeah. So, yeah. So we are still under the public portion, so I would like to at least give the public the opportunity. There are a couple of people that want to say some things. We'll go for it.
remember, it's still, though, the public portion is questions of this witness, questions of the architect.
Right. So my whole commentary
Can we get your
is
name, please?
Jonathan Massey,
And spelled?
Massey.
Thank you.
So I don't know any of the history. The inclusionary nature of what's trying to be done with affordable housing is clearly not being met with what this plan is. I don't really get the whole idea. I know there's a portion of land on this other side of this water that there's 2 buildings that are trying to be kind of shoved in there. Anyone who lives there would be obviously separated from all the amenities. Maybe you put the rich people who don't want to deal with all the other people in those buildings. That would be a solution. And there you might find a group who are like, we don't even want to hang out with those people. We're so fancy, but we want our own spot. And that would be a perfect way to use it. So that's, and I love what the mayor said, but I don't know, you'd have to redo this is without redoing your whole plan. Just put the rich people who want to be that snooty and say, hey, you got playgrounds for your kids, and you're smart enough not to let them drown in the creek. So that's my commentary. Thank you.
Comment to that is that there are 58 units of affordable housing where the rich people live. Okay. So your argument suffers a little.
Do you have a question for this witness?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
My name is Kathleen Millett, Millett. I'm standing on tiptoes.
He's
to
earning
get
his-
us out by 11 o'clock. but
He's
it's
earning
past
his place
11.
tonight.
Again, it was mentioned earlier.
Can we get your name and spelling, please?
She did. Yes, she did.
Oh, you did?
She
Oh, I'm
did.
sorry. Thank you.
I'm the better half.
Very good. Thank you.
As it turns out, this has gone on, and for a moment, let's just remember Larry Redmond, who
Yes.
chaired this board, and we need that piece tonight. I would save all of my comment because it will have a lot to do with the transportation and the two-lane bridge that cannot be dealt with tonight. I will say, though, that if you put those three-bedroom apartments over on Biondi, you're having a school bus. We're going to have expenses that way with having kids from that area having to be transported. So if it's not just the school building, it's going to be the school buses and extra expenses for the township. If you do not agree to that, sir, we do, because we are taxpayers in this township, and that part of the school budget does go there too, and that's over to be, there's kids over in Biondi, that if you put three-bedroom apartments there, you're gonna have to pay. My big concept will be, not reading this, but the school buses have, the school buses here are sometimes impossible to move into Lawrence Harbor, where I live, because they can't come across that bridge when the parkway is backed up. So time after time, in middle school, high school, my son would come from the basketball courts by Hoffman's home. I would get in the car, pick up as many kids as I could, take them to the middle school, then later on to the high school, come back around, sometimes going Clifton Road, down county, and coming back. Then, taking those, I would find out that you cannot come back anymore because the traffic was backed up from Cheesequake. So I would go all the way 34, down to 35, pick up more kids and get them back to school. But those kids got detention because they were so late, because the school buses could not get to exactly where you want to put 529 apartments, some of which will have kids going to school. And how do we get them to school if you don't have your apartments, have transportation? I'm sorry, I should have been talking about transportation.
It's okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your input. Thank you so much. Okay.
All right, is there any more questions of this witness? Okay, so.
We'll close the public portion.
And that, at the end of testimony for this witness, unless, of course, you wanted to re-bring him.
No, I think he's completed his testimony. So we got through one.
Okay. And we will continue the meeting at the next available.
Well, the board has, the chairman has indicated that the board's not taking any further witnesses at this time. It's almost 11:10 at this evening. So either this hearing gets carried, so it can be continued, or it does not, and we are forced to make a vote on the information that has been provided.
Well, the time ran out on August, I'm going to do it again. Time ran out on December 1st, and we extended to tonight. There is no further extension.
Okay, so if the applicant's not going to grant any further extensions, then the board is being forced to make a decision on the application based upon the limited testimony that has been provided. And Chairman, you can entertain a motion if you would like.
Yes, I would like. So with what Mr. Sordillo stated, we will put it to a vote for the testimony received this evening. So I would like to ask someone For a motion,
I will.
moved by Mr. Petty, and a
I'll
second.
second it.
Well, let's just, what is the motion?
Motion, put it to a vote, yes.
Well, is it a motion to approve the application?
Deny.
Sorry, it's,
It's a motion to deny?
Yes, sir.
That's what I was requesting, okay.
I'm sorry.
Notes?
Is it denial with or without prejudice?
Well, you're saying that they're granting no further adjournment, so I don't know how we could do it without prejudice. It's just on the application.
just
If
asking
you're,
you
it's,
have the
well, no, it's a vote on the application. There's no prejudice and non-prejudice. It's
Okay.
the end of the application. Unless you want to change your mind, you have an opportunity. This board, I can tell you right now, was willing to hear more testimony, wants to hear
Right
more
now?
testimony.
He's right here.
No.
Right
At-
here.
At another meeting,
When would that meeting be?
well, we can discuss that.
Well, no, I'm
I'm not going to go through the discussion and trying to figure out when the next available meeting is if you're not
We
going
have
to
a
agree to
meeting
it.
on the 22nd, but that's not going to work. So, no, there's no extension.
Okay. So it's a vote on the application, period. So there's a motion to deny the application based upon the testimony presented.
so we're moving to deny it. So,
That's what the motion on the table is. We need a second, if there is going to be a second.
okay, so we have a second, and I'm just,
Oh, we do, I'm sorry.
yes.
Who's second? Okay. Yes, so there's going to be a roll call then, a vote, just so everyone's clear, a vote, it's the motion is to motion to deny. So a vote yes would be to deny it.
That's where I was going. I just
vote
wanted
no.
everybody to be clear.
A vote no wouldn't be to approve it, but a vote yes would be to deny. That's what's current.
I just have a question. There are various aspects of the application. There's the subdivision, the site plan, and the phasing. Are you lumping all those together, or, I mean, you could easily grant the phasing on the basis of the concession by the staff that there's no market. Everybody says there's no market, so why are we going ahead with the non-residential? So grant the phasing. If you want to deny the rest, that's up to you, but there's no
What would be the
basis.
sense to grant the phasing if the
Well,
preliminary
then-
site plan and subdivision are denied?
Well, then, maybe we come in with a different plan, but the phasing is a huge part of our problem,
So,
Well, I think if you're going to come up with a new plan, then you'd have to come up with the phasing at that point as well.
and the phasing,
I
when,
don't believe the non-residential is going to hold up the residential under any phasing program. This board is not going to hold up the residential.
All right, well, grant the phasing.
We're going to deny the application back based on a lack of information.
That's all.
Roll call, please.
Okay. I tried.
Chairman Marucci,
Yes.
Ms. Cannon? Mr. Lanning?
Yes.
Mayor Henry?
Yes,
Mr.
based on a lack of
DePalma?
information.
Yes.
Mr. Lauer?
Yes.
Mr. Petty?
Yes.
Mr. McIsaac?
Yes.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries.
Okay.
The
I
application's
know you
been
don't
denied.
believe this, but thank you for your time.
No, I agree you're sincere. No, I truly believe you're sincere, and I appreciate it. Thank you for your time very much.
And,
Motion to adjourn.
see,
I said, I'm sure we'll be talking.
Yeah. And prior to adjournment, folks, I have to ask one more time if there are any public comments. Okay, shoot.
All right, board members, please. Excuse me, board members, we haven't actually adjourned yet. We have to open the general public comments under the Open Public Meetings Act, so, and there's someone that would like to speak.
Hi, I'm Maxine McGuire, and I live at 15 Georgia Court. My last name is MacGwyer. And I just really appreciate everything that you guys are doing. This was exhausting. And I gotta say, comparing what happened with the Habitat for Humanity and what happened here, this is so disingenuous to fair housing and all the rest of it when I compare it to what Habitat for Humanity is trying to do. You can't even compare. If I had to be across the creek and had to go and pick up my Amazon and Chewy boxes at the main location, what a schlep. I mean, how is that even, okay. So, thank you for voting no. It's wrong, so wrong. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your input. Anyone else? Okay, we'll close the public portion. And do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
I'll second
I
it.
have a second by Mr. Petty. Okay, Vina's got a,
Yeah, we got to take, right? She's got a roll call?
It could be all in favor.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah, we don't need a roll call for that. Sure.